Hey, folks. How you doing? Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and this is PRT. Look at my hair. Good grief. I just tried to fix it, and then I go on the air, and there it is, all messed up. What the heck is going on? Hair's got its own mind. I got to eat lozenges, folks. I can't do anything if I don't get my throat here. Been talking all day, dealing with stuff. So we go to the mall yesterday. I'll let the chat fill up a little bit, and then I'll tell you about it. It's been crazy. Unbelievable. Okay. All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Studio's still a mess. Big mess. Stuff everywhere. We finally unboxed a lot of the shirts. Got to go over some notes real quick, folks. Thank you for that donation, DJ Tyler. Well, Tyler. Had a great time hanging out with you at the conference, you and your girlfriend, Samantha. Good people. Let's see. Note.
What's going on?
Did I tell the story? There's a story I wanted to tell, but I can't remember if I've told it or not. There was a guy who was breaking into a house. Did I tell that one?
I mean, there's been a story like that in the past.
Yeah, and that guy sent me this story because he heard that one. But it's a really weird story. His girlfriend.
I don't think you did.
That's why we got to label these. We are doing that, folks. I keep getting people asking me about labeling the live streams. And yes, we are doing ourselves a disservice by not doing that. And we're doing you a disservice too. I know that, and I'm going to fix that problem. Okay? There's a lot going on. We trying to run a business and trying to do everything we do. It's just, you've heard it before. You know, it's hectic. No excuses. I don't think I told this story. I went over it with you guys. I don't want to give it away. Anyway, that's the notes that my brother had sent me. What now?
I don't know. It's for work.
You need to tell them that we're on the air, dude. I'm not messing with that right now. I mean, how many times you tell people? They don't care. They don't care. You tell them 100 times, I'm on the air. Friday, I'm on the air. Sunday, they don't care. Oh, I forgot. The very next week, they don't care. You could tell them 1,000 times. You can tell them 1,000,000 times. They don't care. Wish I could just be done with it. At this point, I'm just frustrated with them. Just tired of the hecticness. They want you to do something about stuff that you have no control over. I'm going to tell you something else, folks. If you're sending, I get so many texts, so many emails, and so many messages on Messenger. I'm going to ask a favor. Please just stop sending me links I don't have time to look at links. I know that there's some videos out there that are really cool. 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to look at it. Okay? I don't want you to stop corresponding with me or whatever, but like for example, you send me an attachment for me to open up and watch some funny thing or something, I'm not going to do it. Not because I'm a jerk. I mean, I do not have the time. I physically do not, I just do not have the time. I just don't. I cannot waste time right now. I don't have time for that. A lot of our friends and family being hacked. The people over there in Oklahoma don't stop because they don't work. So why would they? Somebody asked me that a couple of days ago. Why do they keep going? You tell me. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's over.
Still can't figure out who's feeding these people.
And then somebody comes up with chicken, corn, clay horn, whatever, and starts threatening me every day, saber rattling, and, you know, whatever. You don't have anything better to do, chicken McGee, whatever, McKee. Go, you know, jump in the lake. All right. They're going to expose me and hell been holler, and they're going to expose us all, and la 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 la. Right? Lies from Roach's tablecloth. La 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 la.
I just don't get it though. Like, I mean, how do these people eat if they don't work?
They don't work.
Who's feeding them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess taxpayers.
Well, it's fraud.
I mean,
It's all fraud.
People who work, they're eating on our dime, getting fat, which doesn't make. You should not be able to get fat if you don't work.
Yeah. He's always
Everything's
talking
so
about people being
backwards.
fat too, and Mike's quite the chubby guy.
He's a pudgy little
He's a fat
dude.
little dude in his eyes. Show the camera.
The
real quick.
black mouth.
Here it is. And Janice. Oh, should we start Janice? Should we start calling you Harley Quinn? Because he made a post of him wanting a
That was
relationship.
so disgusting.
He wanted a relationship with Harley Quinn or something. He put himself down as the Joker. A couple days later, she's putting herself with pictures of next to Harley Quinn with the pigtails and whatever.
Yeah,
She loves you, Ike. You need to like just give her a chance, dude. Okay, because all these other women that you sexually harass are not going for it.
And that's probably the best you're gonna get, dude.
Yeah, seriously.
Just take what you can get. When you look like you
should settle.
Yeah. Just settle for that old dried up dish rag or that old boot that you pulled out of the ocean.
That's rude. Those boots are nice, comparatively.
And I think that here's a message for Kaylee. I think, Kaylee, you're not ugly, okay? You do kind of look like Mike, so you got that. That's the genetics. You can't help that. But you could do better than hanging around with a pack of hillbillies. You could go make something of yourself. You're still young. You're 21 or 22. I don't know. She's in her early 20s. Go do something for yourself. Get away from daddy, okay? And whatever y'all do, the listeners, please be careful of saying things to Chokey up there and Voodoo or Vulture, any of those people, because they are very dangerous people, and I'm not joking. I'm telling you right now. They are suspects in a lot of stuff. I'm not kidding. They threaten some people, here and there, and I'm telling you, I'm me. I do what I do. I'm not afraid of these people. I don't give a crap about these people. Like I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't respect you. I have no respect for you. I don't care about your curses. I don't care about your goose and ghoulies and all your little things you do. I don't give a crap, dude. I'll elbow drop you into the next dimension. I don't give a crap, okay? There's nothing you're going to do to me. You're punks. You're a bunch of punks. You're a bunch of punk B-words. Run your mouth, but you can't do nothing. You're not going to do nothing about it. You're not going to do nothing about it. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You got to have something. If you're going to fight with me, you don't have anything. But they can go after women and children, and they can go after weaker people. And that's what they do. So be careful, especially if you live around them. You don't know. I mean, apparently they don't have vehicles that go very far either. Well, Swampy does. I think he flies to his. He has a girlfriend apparently that has a transsexual, like hairstylist or something. She's a
What?
Yeah, for real. That's what she does. He thinks we don't know about him, dude. I looked all into these people. Trust me. 42-page criminal record too. Yeah, that's you, dude. That's why he doesn't sue, because he knows they'll depose him and everything he does will come out. That's what they're all full of crap, dude. You're full of crap. He goes on to Potato Head, corrections officer guy.
It's like Stewart from Frisky Dingo.
That's his whole show. The other guy resting his arms on his belly the whole time. Talking about, well, I don't want nothing going back to my police department. I think everything should go back to your police department. How about I tell everybody everything about you and your police department? How about I do that? Would you like that? Or maybe y'all could just shut the hell up about me. Would that... I'm just talking until we get some people in here, folks. We get 300 people, we'll start cracking them. Don't worry. But in the meantime, these people, they just... You don't know when you're beaten. Like, like just like Vader, you were beaten, They're like, no, I'll never join you. No, I never said I wanted you to join me. I don't want to be a part of your gang. No, please don't take it that way. I would rather you just fall into the abyss. Mm-hmm. We don't want you. We don't want your listeners either. We just want you gone. That's it. Okay. With one hand, and that's just because they were born that way because of inbreeding.
That's a strong hand.
It's my little strong hand. White phosphorus pictures. I know who that is.
Yeah.
What's up, Garitano? How you doing? As soon as I find this story, I'm going to tell you this story. So here's a story that happened to me yesterday. Okay, enough talking about hillbillies and convicts. I go into the mall yesterday. Anthony, you were with me.
Mm-hmm.
We go into the mall, and apparently there was a shooting at the Barton Creek Mall in South Austin. So I'm going in there to meet a friend of mine who sells a type of cologne. It's called the Fifth Scent, and I'm not getting paid for this promotion. He gives me some free stuff every now and then, and that's all. I don't need anything. But they do really good. He's a Turkish guy, but he does a really, really good product. And I've been using it for probably, what would you say, 3 or 4 years now?
Yeah.
And it works, and it lasts, and it's just as good as like the designer stuff that you would get at like Macy's. And in fact, we've all three here at this table have some of it, and we've done side-by-side comparisons. And so, anyways, he's like, meet me over Barton Creek, and he's going to sell me a big box of it at wholesale so that I could take it to Christmas Eve for my family on both sides that we do Christmas Eve. And I was going to give it to everybody for Christmas Eve. So I go in there, and I kid you not, folks, this is no exaggeration. Anthony's right here. Nellie, there was blood everywhere. Am I lying?
No, they still haven't cleaned it up.
The cops were just leaving, and the whole mall was dead because it was just shut down, whatever. It was just dead quiet. And poor guy, there was a janitor guy. He's like, watch your step. We looked down, and there's just blood all over the place. There was a shooting there between gang members, basically. A Hispanic gang and a black gang got into it. And apparently it started on Black Friday. Being in South Austin, it used to not be in a bad area. It was in Southwest Austin, but now all of South Austin is just garbage.
It's trash.
It's just trashed out.
And they're proud of it.
Yeah. So we walk in there, and I grab Nellie. I'm like, whoa. And Nellie still is not in the best of health. She can't walk a whole bunch without getting, not feeling good. And, it was crazy. And so then my friend had already shut down. Everybody had shut down, and it was like an hour or two before they were supposed to close, but there was nobody there. And so we saw him today at Lakeline Mall, by where we live, and we talked to him. Well, it's not by where we live, but it's the closer one. And so we talked to him, and he was like, dude, the mall was just jumping. People everywhere shopping for Christmas, having a good time, buying stuff, going to the food court. You know, the Cheesecake Factory was there. It was full of people. The movie theater was full of people. And then bang, bang. Somebody gets shot. And everything just ended. Ruined everybody's day there in the mall. You know, it's a very large mall. It's about twice the size, I think, of Lakeland, isn't it?
Probably.
There's only 2 left because they already destroyed Highland Mall with the gang and gang activity on the and not even the east, Austin. It was in North Central, right? And I used to go there, and we just 10 years ago we were working security there.
Yeah, I loved Highland Mall as a kid.
I liked Highland Mall. It was
like the little
place.
wishing fountain. That was cool.
There was a ghost that I told a story about from the gold mine, the arcade there. And people would see him. You know, it was this ghost story. Liberty, thank you for that donation. But now somebody's been shot over there. So I caught up to him, and since I bought a bunch of those colognes from wholesale from him, he said it made up for his loss yesterday. He was very grateful. He was glad. I was glad that he was in Lakeland. I had to drive all the way south. But it's been a rough day. A rough day. Cowboys got blown out. I mean, they got a garbage TD toward the end there. Way to go, Cowboys. And everybody's going to be like, are you still them boys? Still them boys. They just can't seem to keep it together. They beat the Eagles, and then they just blew it. That's what happens, though. It seems like to be this big letdown. You know, as soon as they win a game, then the big game, you know, then they just blow it, huh? It's not looking. Doesn't look like they're going to be doing much if they're going to play like that. Then they're just going to go into the playoffs, probably win the first round, and then lose in the divisionals again. If they make it to the NFC Championship game, I predict the Niners. It's going to be hard for them to get past them. I would say the Niners look like the best team in the league right now. Probably going to win it. So if you're a betting man, and if they wrap up home field advantage, they always do really well when they have home field. So it's a credit if your team can go there and beat them. But good luck with that. And the Eagles, you can fly high all you want. You're going to get plucked if you play either one of them, because I think the Cowboys and the Niners have their number. So that's just the way it's going to be. I think the Chiefs got rooked. I'm not a Chiefs fan, but, you know, come on. The last minute, you're going to throw a penalty? Folks, if you haven't figured out by now that the officiating is very biased, it's very slanted, and they're controlling the outcome of these games, and you're not paying attention. Somebody got on to me the other day about saying that, oh, you sound like a conspiracy theorist. This isn't a conspiracy when it's true. It's just, you know, you want to call it that, call it that. I'll call you whatever you want. Call me whatever you want. Rough. I got to find these freaking stories so I can get started here. Did everybody have a good weekend up to now? And this is toward the end of the weekend, right? Don't you hate it when somebody tells you, have a good weekend? It's already Sunday night. It's only happened to me once. It was my wife's sister, and she was mad at me about something, and she walked out. Have a good weekend. I'm like, it's 9:00 at night. So you have a good 3 hours. What are you talking about? Have a good weekend. Stupid. Very stupid. Stop being your feelings. People get mad. Folks, I'm trying to find this. We're almost at 300. There we go, 300 people. We get started because you can't rewind. And tell them why we can't do that, please, so they know, because people are going to be like, well, why can't we rewind?
Yeah, well, you used to could rewind, but it just led to problems of people thinking that they were watching the live stream live, but they were 10, 15, 20 minutes behind, and then they would comment on stuff that was that far behind, and it would confuse people in the chat, and the chat would morph into people saying no, that they already talked about that, or being confused and miscommunicating, and it's just better for if we're all on the same page at the same time. You can always go back the next day or like after the stream has been concluded and processed by YouTube, and you can rewind and fast forward all you want. So it just works. I think it works better this way. And honestly, it wasn't those people's fault. Like, I mean, because it just happens. A lot of people watch on their phones. Sometimes you get a phone call or a text message, and it stops the show, and it won't put you back live. It'll just pick up where you left off, and they had no idea that they were that far behind. So yeah.
A bunch of stories here. I'm trying to find them. I know I got them somewhere.
I thought you texted him to D.
Yeah, I did, but there were some that I needed to go back and finish that were on Nellie's. So Nellie, if you're listening, maybe you can find them for me. I don't know, whatever. So let me go to D's. There's so many messages, dude. I can't even keep track. It's just so much. Okay, so let me do this one. Let me just get started here. This story was given to me, and this happened in not Minnesota. Oh God, I remember what it was. Oh, Connecticut. The story was in Connecticut, and it was. So, the girl that gave me this story. It's kind of funny because I haven't told Bettina, but she kind of looks like Bettina. She kind of looks like her.
Yeah.
They both have the same kind of.
Well, that's a compliment.
No, I don't think so. But, I'm joking, Bettina. Bettina's probably like, "What? I'm messing with you, B.
She's getting red hot.
I'm your friend."
She's like furiously texting right now.
But no, the person that gave me this story, she's an African American girl, and she told me this story. She says when I was a kid. And it started off kind of funny because she says that she played with Barbie dolls like all girls, right?
Yeah.
And she had a friend that came over, and they had lived in a bad part of town for up until they were till she was 10 years old, and then they moved to a middle class neighborhood. And she said something kind of funny. It was kind of like what Dave Chappelle said. She goes, "My dad made just enough money for us to be poor around white people." Which is what Dave Chappelle said. He like Dave Chappelle. She goes, "Yeah, exactly." She said, but the first time that she hung out with this girl from school, and they hit it off, and they became really good friends. And I thought it was interesting too because we have a friend. This is an interesting story. Her name is Madeline, and we call her Maddie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this girl's name was Madison, and they called her Maddie. So but it was funny because she kind of looks like Bettina, and then her friend's name was Maddie. And when she said that, I was kind of like, well, that's a weird coincidence. But anyway, she has a little slumber party. She gets together, and one of her friends from as she calls it, the old hood, the neighborhood, comes over. And they are with a new friend from the new school she was going to named Maddie. And to this day, her and Maddie are still really good friends. In fact, Maddie was the best person at her wedding. What do you call it? The best, whatever. The
maid of honor.
Maid of honor, yeah. Kate Hunter, thank you for that donation. That really helps because you saved us last Friday because I know it's Christmas time and money's tight. We are trying to get the money together for the food drive, folks, and we're about $700 shy of what we need. But it'll come out of our money. Don't worry about that. If we can't get it done, we'll get it done. Nobody's going to lose Christmas. But we could use the help. We appreciate it, honestly. So what happened was, and this is a creepy, scary story. Now, if I would have had this one, I apologize. I got this story back in late August. And if I would have found this story, I would have put this on the Halloween show. Probably not taking anything off, but I would have just added to it because it's a creepy freaking story. And when I was being told this story, I was in my study by myself. Everybody in the house was asleep. And you know how Martis likes to open the door? We have a cat who can open doors.
Yeah.
And I kid you not.
He does it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He opens the door and he just walks in.
He's a little menace.
He's a menace.
He's entitled is what he is.
And so he drives everybody crazy with his nonsense. But he walks in, hey guys, what's up? And he kind of reminds me of Lucy from the Disenchantment. So he just comes in, strolling in, and I usually tell him, get out, and I close the door and I lock it so he can't get, but I just let him in because I was like, I didn't want to be alone. And then, of course, when the doors open, then here comes Elvira, here comes Beans, and here comes Porky, which is my pig. That is Thaddeus. I call him Thaddeus because I like to put a little top hat on him and dress him up like a proper gentleman, which he promptly throws everything off and says he's not having it. But no, I don't dress my pig. I'm just joking. It'd be too much trouble. What I do, though, is let him come in and hang out with me because I get freaked out. And every once in a while, somebody will drop a story on me that really freaks me out. And this is one of those stories. To the point where I was going to tell it the other, like a couple weeks ago, and I decided to wait because I just needed to be in the zone to do it. So I'm just going to come right out of the gate swinging here. All right. This story really got to me. Like, it freaked me out. She moved into a house in a middle-class neighborhood, that nice big house. It was bigger, like twice the size of the house they lived in. By a long ways. She said it was like over twice the size. I asked her, like, how big? She goes, well, 4 bedrooms, She's like, me and my 3 siblings were living in a 2-bedroom. We had 2 bedrooms between the 4 of us. Okay. We doubled up, and then we had a 3-bedroom house. But she's like, we lived in one of the nicer spots in the bad neighborhood. But she's like, but it was still in a bad neighborhood. We had, like, bars on the windows and stuff. She's like, this house, great neighborhood. Very nice,
Of course.
And there was no problems, She's like, you could walk around outside, nobody was gonna mess with you or accost you or anything like that. But she goes, when you see the house from the outside, it didn't tell the story. And so I kind of reminded her, I was like, one of the scariest of those hauntings was one of the first ones, which was a haunting in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And John Zaffis, who I've actually corresponded with, he says that he did, when that was one of the most terrifying, or I think he said it was.
Yeah, he said it was the most terrifying.
It was the most terrifying, and he was involved in some really crazy cases. He worked with the Warrens, and he was friends with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who I was a big fan of. Never got to speak to her before she passed away. I didn't really get to know her. She passed away as I was coming up, but I read some of her work, and it was really good. I think Dark Fairies, was that the one she did? Did she do that one?
I think so.
The Vengeful Jinn, whatever. John Zaffis, he's an author too. Good work, these guys. So we started talking, and I told her about that, and she messaged me back, and she was like, pretty scary stuff. She watched that episode of A Haunting from, was it the Travel Channel?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
It's either that or Discovery.
I could find out. But so we talked, and apparently I was talking to a guy that I met at the gym, and he was telling me that Connecticut's a very haunted place. My nephew Zane lived there and worked there for a while. And let me see something real quick. We need moderators. They need to be in here moderating.
Yeah. Yeah, I just removed the message. Lenny, we don't need to know that. Please don't send another message like that. Mods, if he does, just go ahead and hide him from the channel, please.
We just always got to be some mess. So we started talking, and I told this individual, I said, one of the scariest cases was, in Connecticut, and she was like, she didn't know about it. Once she read it and and studied it a little bit, she came back to me and she was like, "Yeah, it was pretty creepy." And not talking about the movie. There was like a movie I think that was made about it, and but this was a really creepy story. And she was given my information by someone who gave me a Dogman story. It says, "Hey, my cousin has a really scary story. She lived in Connecticut. The person that gave me the story about this Dogman story was in Delaware." So she said, "My cousin who lives in Connecticut has a story. They're both from the East Coast, and you might be interested in it." And I said, "Well, what is it?" She's like, "It's a ghost story." I said, "That's cool. I have a lot of ghost stories, but I didn't think. I just thought, okay, it's a ghost story." So I just thought it's a ghost story. And then I realized that it's a little more than a ghost story. It's a terrifying story. And I don't know what I would do if I was a child and I had to go through this. She ended up having to have therapy for years. And they tried to convince her that the things that went on were not as bad. Her mother suffered with her along with her siblings. The dad just absolutely was not having it, which happens quite a bit. And I'm sad to say, as a guy, we got to do better. When you have a wife and 4 children, just telling them that they're full of crap and they're crazy, and then threatening, pulling out the belt and spanking people because they see something, I think it's wrong. I think it's really wrong.
Oh, yeah.
On his deathbed, her dad, not only did he apologize, but he admitted that some of the phenomena had affected him. And it was like, why did you act the way you did? So we're going to get into it.
That would make me so mad.
Yeah, it was, listening to the story was, when you do what I do and you talk to people and they give you stories, you're not just a storyteller or a story reteller. I know there's a guy that's like, "Hey, man, I'm a therapist." You're full of shit, dude. Okay? No, you're not. You're just a guy that just lets people ramble on your show. That's what you are. So that's not what you are. You're just a guy who does that. But unfortunately, people are traumatized by this. And sometimes you have to really be a therapist. You listen to them and what they say. And I try to add a little more too when they talk to me. I try to give them something, some idea. And that's what we're doing on this show. I was interviewed by a British publication, and the lady asked me what my, Anthony, Tony, what my goal was. And like, my goal, you want to go home and go to sleep? You look very tired, dude. You're like, you could take off, dude. You don't have to be here.
I'm all right.
You sure? Because your head was down, you were sleeping. So
I was right.
if we're boring you and you're tired, just go home. I mean, you didn't. I know you didn't sleep today, so.
Oh, that's right, you didn't.
I'm off today, so I'd rather be here.
I actually brought a Red Bull because I thought I was going to need it, but I ended up not needing it.
Yeah, I'll
You can
take
have
that.
it.
Yeah, because Tony had to go to and I'm not being facetious or funny. I mean, he didn't sleep today. He had to go to his mother's for Christmas because that was the only time everybody could get together over there. It's about like us. We got to just do Christmas when we can. I mean, it's Christmas on the fly. We don't have time. It's just what it is, man. We're gonna have this sort of a Christmas on Christmas Eve, but as soon as we're done, we got to run back and go to work. So, I mean, everybody was saying how last year didn't feel like Christmas. It didn't, and this year doesn't feel like Christmas either.
It feels rushed.
Feels like we're just rushing through everything, trying to get things done.
I mean, at least this year we actually we did some really nice decorations around the house, so
Yeah,
it feels a little bit more homely, a little bit more Christmassy.
yeah. And homely, it was a little more homely. But yeah, so I thought if it was me, I would have been very upset. But here's what happened. Let's start from the beginning. She goes with her family, and it affected her siblings too, but I didn't get to talk to them. One of them sent me a message and just kind of said what she's saying is true. Trina is her name. I'm sorry that she went through this, but when they first toured the house, it was 3 different houses they looked at. Her parents they really liked that house, and it was a little more expensive than the other 2. Oh, I'm sorry, it was a little cheaper than the other 2, and nicer. So it was her older sister that told her mom and dad. She said, my older sister was very suspicious. She's like, why would this house that's bigger, nicer, why would it be so much cheaper than the other 2? There was one house they looked at that they really liked. And it had like a playhouse. It was built in the backyard. So the dad was like, oh, y'all just want to move there because of the playhouse. I'm not buying that house just because y'all want to live there. This house is big. It's nice. It's cheap. She was upstairs, and they were looking at the rooms. And she said, with all the houses that we looked at, we would run and play through the house and run around and be like, this room would be my room, blah, 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 blah. She's like, they didn't do that. She said all of us just stood there kind of holding hands, walking from room to room and thinking, this isn't somewhere I want to be. And then her mother was like, that could be your room. Trina is not her full name, but that's what they called her, Trina or Trini. And she's like, Trini, that could be your room. And she's like, this could be your room to her brother, and then her sister. 3 girls and a boy. And yeah. Nobody was feeling it. She's like, when we left that house, we were glad to be out of there. Nobody wanted to be in that house. Nobody wanted to live in that house. But she's like, I went home that day to their old house. She's like, I knew in my heart that was where we were going to live. She's like, me and my middle sister, she's the youngest sister. She had 2 older sisters and a younger brother. She's like, me and my brother, who they're a year apart, and her other sister, who's 2 years older than her, they were all up listening by the door. And they heard the parents say, that's the house we're going to go for. That's what we're going to do.
Great.
And she says, my heart sank. I knew right then that was not the house we should be in. She says, I prayed. She's like, I literally prayed, Wolf. She told me this. She's like, I prayed, don't let us get this house, God. Please don't let us get this house. And her sister said, well, we're going to get it, the older sister. She said, you need to start praying that we're okay. And unfortunately, they weren't okay. She said the first day they moved into this place, the very first day they moved into this place, she says, I was in the bathroom. I had just closed the door. She said, I heard scratching on the other side of the mirror. And she's like, something's in the wall. So she literally thought maybe there was an animal or something in the wall. Because that's the first thing you're going to think. You're not going to think a ghost. But she's like, I thought it's got to be an animal. That's got to be an animal. It sounds just like an animal. She's like 10 years old. She runs out of the room. She goes and tells her mom and dad. They go in there. There's nothing. They don't hear anything. They're like, okay, stop. Okay. We don't hear anything. We have stuff to move. We don't have time for this. They were still unpacking. She said that night, me and my middle sister, we shared a room. The other 2 kids had their own room. And so it was just like it was before, except she wasn't sharing with her younger brother. She was sharing with her middle sister. That's a weird question. Maybe we can get back to that, Justin. Thank you for that donation. Read it.
Justin Lister says, is it common to have a premonition of a car accident seconds before it happens so that you can avoid the accident? Happened to me 3 times. One time I even told my wife that's about the jackknife, then 10 seconds later it did. My wife couldn't believe it.
I don't see why not. But thank you for that donation. And I don't see why not. But that's interesting. So what ended up happening, she moved. They move into this house. The first night she was there, she's like, that night I had a dream. She's like, and it was horrific. She's like, I saw this man come through the back door. The back door, he was like checking it, like it was locked, unlocked, and it was open. So he walks in and he goes upstairs and he proceeds to unalive 2 kids upstairs.
Ah.
Oh my gosh.
Then he goes downstairs and he takes an extension cord and does some unaliving to a woman that was sleeping downstairs. She said there was an argument. She remembers her saying, "You're not supposed to be here," and blah, blah, blah. She doesn't know what it was. She never did figure it out. But it was, she said, I woke up, my heart was beating so fast and so hard, I could feel it. And I told my sister, I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. She was a 10-year-old kid. Her sister was 12. And then they started talking, and her sister's like, I just had a horrible dream. And then they started finishing each other's sentences. They were both dreaming this at the same time. It was a horrific dream. But that wasn't the first, that was the first time, but that wouldn't be the last time that they had this same dream. She's like, all throughout the first month we were there, like every few days we would have this dream, at least twice a week. She said that it would be more graphic each time and we would learn more about, to the point where I asked, she's like, I begged my parents to find out the history of the house. She's like, but I'm a 10-year-old kid. She's like, I'm not saying that I'm, like a wonder kid, wonderkin, whatever. She's like, I'm telling you, she's like, I was different than other children. Like I had, she's like, definitely I felt, don't attack me, siblings, but she said she thought she was probably the smartest sibling. Her mom and dad did nothing to foster that or to make it, to help her. They put the oldest daughter through college, and they basically, let me fix this real quick. Put the camera on there. I'm going to do something. I'll be right back, folks.
Sorry about that, folk. Give us a second here.
The chair just went whoop. So she said that, she was always kind of resentful towards that because she made really good grades and she got offered a partial scholarship and her parents wouldn't help her. Her mom and dad eventually divorced because her dad was abusive to her mother and, and how that goes. She thinks a lot of it had to do with that house. She says, I don't remember my dad ever striking my mother until we moved into that house. She said they would argue. There'd be bad arguments, but there was like her dad began to have an affair and then, began to lash out and strike her mother. It started in that house. She said that one day when she was making a grilled cheese sandwich, it was something that was one of her favorite foods. And she's like, I was downstairs, I was making grilled cheese. We were latchkey kids at that point. Her parents both worked. I know what that's like. She said, I would make certain foods. And it was kind of funny because I told her, I was like, I used to do the same thing. Not really grilled cheese, but she would make macaroni with tuna.
Yeah.
That was like a staple of my diet as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And I would do that. And I started laughing because she said ramen noodles and tuna.
Ramen and tuna or canned chicken.
Canned chicken, whatever. And I said, yeah, trust me, I know. Eat lots of sandwiches,
Venus sausages.
Before my mother died, she did tell me that she regretted not being more of a mom. And when she started working all the time, all that stopped. And she quit being a real mother and just kind of, we raised ourselves type thing. You spend all this time doing what you do and not taking care and being with the people you should, it's important. So I understood that part. But she had this cousin that came over. That's the one that gave me the Dogman story, which I have not told yet. I might just tell it tonight. But she said my cousin came over, and she said that the first night that she was there, we'll call her Taylor. And she said Taylor, or Tay, they would call her Taya. She came over. And she had a horrible dream. And guess what? Same thing. big, angry guy. Well, she say big, tall, but he was skinny. Tall, skinny, mean-looking guy, very muscular. Came through the back door and did things, bad things. And her cousin was like, she was staying there in the summertime from Delaware. They had been living in the house for about 5 or 6 months at this point. A few things had happened, but it was just spurts, here and there. And it hadn't got really hot and heavy yet where things were really happening. But it was about to. One of the things that I remember her telling me, and I thought was that brought back memories of me staying in a 2-story house as a child. She said when I was there by myself, which wasn't very often, thank goodness, lucky for her. She said, but I would hear stuff upstairs and I would be downstairs. And I would be terrified to go upstairs. And she said she would hear the laughter of children. And one of these times when she was by herself and she had just sat down after making a grilled cheese sandwich, I was talking about the grilled cheese sandwich. She was making a grilled cheese sandwich. She had just finished. She turns around and she sees what looks like a woman, like an Asian-looking woman with no eyes, like black eyes, not no eyes, but black, where the eyes should have been. But you could tell she was Asian. And she was standing there staring at her, and she had like her hand, like she moved her hand, and she could see it go. They had like an island, the kitchen island.
Yeah.
And it went through the island. And she turned around and she was like, and then she stared really hard at her for a minute, and she screamed and dropped her food because she realized she could look right through this woman. And then the woman turned and moved. Part of her body went through the island and then began to just kind of dissipate. Now, those are the words she used, and I asked her, I said, Trini, you say dissipate. What does that mean? She says, it wasn't like poof, gone. She's like, I've seen that too. She's like, no. It was like she just started to slowly just dematerialize into like little specks, and then it was gone. She's like, and then the very next day, she's like, I come home, and we had a strict rule, take the shoes off, whatever. She's like, I take my shoes off. She's like, and I start walking up to my room. She said that her older sister was upstairs, and she's like, come here, I got to show you something. She starts to go up the stairs, and then the sister giggles and laughs and runs, She gets up to the hallway, and she's like calling her sister. And she's like, where are you? She goes from room to room, and the sister's like, I'm in here in the back room. She goes back there to her mom and dad's bedroom. Sister's not there.
Huh.
Then she hears the door open, and it's her little brother. Her little brother comes through. His name's Jerome. And he's like, goes and immediately does what he does, goes to the fridge and grabs a juice box and does what kids do. He's like 9 at that point. So she comes downstairs, and then her brother is just frozen in fear. Because he's like, how did you get upstairs? And she's like, what do you mean? She's like walking slowly down the stairs. She stops, and Jerome's like, who is that? And she sees like what she still to this day, she describes as a hologram of herself. Because you could see through it because it looked like her on the couch.
It was like a doppelganger, but
like
she could see through it?
But it wasn't moving. It was just sitting there looking straight ahead at the TV. And the TV was on, which she didn't turn on. She's like, and her older sister, they called her Cooey. That was her pet name, whatever. She said, Cooey was upstairs, just told me to come up there. And he's like, Cooey's with mom. He's like, they just dropped me off. They went to the grocery store. And she's like, what? So that, that would be, and imagine now you're 10 years old. Now we go back to the cousin that stayed the night, remember? Mm-hmm. And her cousin was like, she's like making a joke. And she's like, y'all moved into this rich neighborhood, the rich people's neighborhood, like the Fresh Prince, and now y'all are haunted. She's like, we didn't have this problem when we were living in the hood. And she's like, no, everybody's house was haunted in the hood. So it was like, And she's like, but y'all got the haunted house, because they were jumping on a trampoline and the kids next door, it was in the summertime, and they had a swimming pool, and they were like, come on, come over. So they all went and they got their towels and everybody, and they said, let's go swim. So they went next door, they started swimming, and everybody was getting along and having a great time. And then one of the neighbor kids came over, and she's like, I'll never forget, he was sort of a weird kid. And she's like, looking back on it, he may have been like on the spectrum. She didn't know what that was back then.
Yeah.
But he was like, you live in the haunted house. And she's like, what? And he's like, you live in that haunted house. That's where the murders happen. He's like, when I was a kid, this is the uncle of the people that lived next door. Guess you could say he was kind of a hippy-dippy stoner type guy. She's like, he had long hair, and he was all like, yeah, you know?
Yeah.
She said he reminded her of the guy that drove the bus on The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
But he was like, when I was a kid, he goes, there was a bunch of murders that took place there. At least that's what we were told. And she's like, do you think it really happened? Now, she's a few years younger than me, so she's Gen X. And he goes, I don't know. He's like, but one time, he's like, I was upstairs because he lived in that house. He grew up in the house next door. He's like, my sister, who you know, I live with. He's like, and when we were kids, we had this house. It was our parents, and we were upstairs, and there was a family that lived here, and my friend Jason lived here, and he said that Jason was drug out of bed and smacked around and thrown into a closet by some sort of unseen thing, and it happened multiple times. And then this dude, you know, and of course he's only like 18, 19, he's not even that old, but he's over here telling these children this, you know, and he's like, and then he goes, one night I watched him levitate off the ground when he should have been in bed asleep. And he goes, and I was in my bedroom, you know, right next door, you know, and I could cross the fence. I could see this happening. So these kids are just, you know, terrified out of their mind. So they're like, thank you, you know, stoner guy, for telling us this horrific thing. Now we're going to go back to our house and be terrified. But one of the worst things that happened, to me, one of the scariest things, and you got to remember, guys, I'm in my study. Y'all are still asleep when this story's being told to me. This is like a couple weeks before the conference, I think, when she told me the story. And I'm sitting there, and I'm getting ready for the conference and everything, and she's telling me this. And it unnerved me. It unnerved me. She says, we had my cousin over, and then she's like, we had a really good friend that I had met at school. And she's like, you know, and she's like, I don't have a racist bone in my body, but I'm going to tell you honestly, I had never had a white friend. She's like, I lived in a black neighborhood. There was all black people. There were no white people around. Yeah. She's like, there were a few kids that lived in that neighborhood. They were from Dominican Republic, she thinks. She's like, but there were no white kids there. She's like, and so I was really excited. And so she's like, I had my friend come over, Maddie, who's still her friend, Madison. And she said, we made friends at school. And I said, Mom and Dad, I want to bring my friend over. But she's white. And her parents were like, so? You know? But then her mother was like, okay, if this kid's going to come over, we don't want there to be, you know, the house be dirty and all this stuff. So y'all be on your best behavior. Yeah. And she said it wasn't anything racial. It was just simply, you know, this is a new neighborhood for them, and they wanted to put their best foot forward.
Yeah, you don't want to have a bad reputation.
And her friend lived not in a couple streets over or whatever. And her parents were very strict, so that it was hard for them to even get her to be able to come stay the night. Reason being is because her sister had been abducted by some crazy dude, but they got her away from him. But her parents obviously were
very overprotective,
overprotective and freaked out by that. And a lot of times when something like that happens, you don't get your child back. So it was a mess. And she's like, the East Coast is wild. I said, okay, you know, I'll take your word for it. Never been up there. Never been to Connecticut. But she said when her friend came over, the first thing that she did was she's like, it's cold in here. And she's like, we didn't notice it, but it was really cold in the house, like all the time. She's like, and no matter how much heat we turned on, One room in particular was always cold. And she said that the den in particular, which is where they would see apparitions and stuff quite a bit. One night, her friend that was the first night she stayed the night or whatever. She said there were multiple times after that. But one night, she's like, we were upstairs and we were playing a game. And she's like, and I think it was Parcheesi, but I can't remember exactly. And she's like, we were all laughing and there were 3 of us. And she's like, I leaned back. Thank you, Rita, for that donation.
That's not $100. That's
wow.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that almost covers the food drive. Thank you so much for that. That really helps quite a bit. Thank you so much. And so thank you, Rita. We really appreciate that. Yeah. And so she continues playing the game with her friends. They keep stopping, laughing, whatever. They hear something come from the closet, and she says it sounded like a child's voice. And there were 3 girls there, and one of them had got up to go to the restroom. She's like, I'll be right back. They're having a little slumber party. And she said after a long day of jumping on the trampoline and then playing with the neighbors next door, she's like, and the neighbors would never stay the night. And it was nothing against them, but her mother, the mother of the neighbor kids, had a talk with their mother and said that she didn't want her children staying the night in that house. But that her kids were welcome to stay the night next door at their house, which they did frequently. And so one of these was the neighbor kid, and it was the first night that the neighbor kid was allowed to stay the night, and it was with her friend Madison. And those 2, along with her cousin, they were there. At the same time, her sister was there, but she was like one of those, she's like, I think my sister's narcoleptic. She would always fall asleep early, and then she'd be done. She was like, 9 o'clock. I'm going to stay up all night with y'all. Sleep, it's done. I'm asleep. The older sister was staying with some friends of theirs, whatever. She was at her own get-together, whatever. The little brother had a friend that he had over, and they were in the backyard playing until late, whatever, building a fort, whatever. She's like, whatever they were doing. It was almost dark. She's like, and then we hear from the closet as we're sitting there joking and laughing and we're talking, and she's like, and we hear, keep playing. And she was like, they look around, and they thought that it was, Taya, but it wasn't her. They thought it was the other girl. It wasn't her. The older sister, whatever, was asleep. Nobody. They don't know who it was. And the friend comes running back down the hall and comes in and says, what'd I miss? They're like, everybody's all quiet. Then they all stand up and they're like, whoa, that's weird. So they decide to go downstairs to grab like these little snacks, whatever. She's like, we had pudding, yogurt, all that stuff. Basically latchkey kid stuff. So that I know, believe me, I know. And so they go downstairs and she goes, and then we hear boom, 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 a bunch of noise. I had very good sound effects, but she hears like stuff flying around, and then they all look at each other as they're walking back up the stairs with their respective snacks. And then they're like, did y'all hear that? And then they look over, and they're in their little brother's room. The little brother had come in, and him and his friend were playing with toys, whatever. Their little TV was going. And she's like, I don't think it was them. And the mom was at some kind of meeting or something, and the dad was supposed to be watching it when he's in his room asleep. She's like, there was like some baseball game or something. He was in there sleeping, whatever. They walked into the bedroom, and there's stuff everywhere. Strewn everywhere. The Parcheesi game was thrown up against the wall. She's like, it was like, sitting up against the floor and the wall. And everybody was freaked out. They all ran downstairs, and they sat there, and they watched TV. They put a movie in, they watched TV for who knows how long. She said after a couple of hours of watching different shows, whatever, she's like trying to watch a movie that the VHS wouldn't play right, whatever. So I asked her a question, what movie was it? Take a guess. Mm-hmm. It was Ghostbusters 2. I
was going to say Poltergeist.
I was going to say Ring.
So she's like, we tried to watch a movie. It was a VHS tape, whatever. She's like, we couldn't get it to play. She's like, at that point, they were extremely aggravated, extremely agitated because they didn't want to go upstairs. They didn't want to do anything. The mother comes home. They had ordered some food. It hadn't showed up yet. And the mom's like, what'd you guys order? And she says, we ordered this, that, blah, blah, blah. She's like, well, you know what? Cancel that. Let's just go. I'll take you guys to go eat. Let's go to a restaurant, whatever. And she's like, I don't remember where we were going. She's like, but we all pile in the car, 4 kids, and then my brother and his friends, so all together 6 children. My dad decided to stay at home. He was tired, it was a Friday night, whatever. She's like, we get into the car, and as we're backing up, we see a little girl. And she goes, and this is the first time I saw this, waving at us from my bedroom. And her mother stops this car. They had like a little station wagon. Her mom stops the car, and she's like, who is that? And the mom sees it. This is the first time that they had all together seen this apparition. And the other girls looking and trying to see it, and it was just her mom, her brother's friend, her and her cousin. They're the only ones that got a good look at it, and then it was gone. It backed away from the window. So real that she runs back inside, gets her husband, and they go all through the house looking for this person. Because she was convinced that there was a little child that was up in there who looked like she was probably 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
Which would have been a little younger than her and her friends. She's like, that's not one of our friends. So at this point, the neighbor girl was like, I want to go home. So she gets out of the car and just walks next door. And then her cousin says the same thing. She's like, I want to go home too. Luckily, her friend Maddie, who she's been friends with for all these years, her first friend that wasn't black. And she says, my friend says, no, I'm with you. I'm be here. I'm good. She's like, and then we ended up being best friends from that moment on. She was like, I got you.
She's a real friend.
She's like, I got you. So she said that they go upstairs after they come back from eating pizza. And they basically, poor kids, man, they just sat there terrified. The sister, asleep through this whole thing, doesn't get out of bed. She's like, you could clap your hands over her head. She's like, you could put your finger in her nose. And I was like, how would you know that? She goes,
Research.
She goes, research.
Did it.
She goes, well, those little pixie sticks? We actually stuck one in her nose. And then, this makes me cough when I think about it. And she said that they pushed some of that dust into her nose.
Yeah,
and it made her wake up choking. And then she ended up getting a spanking because it nearly choked her sister to death. She said it probably didn't choke her, but it was bad,
Well, I mean, hell,
well, that's how you know.
we set off firecrackers inside of trash and inside.
And Zane didn't wake up.
Wake up Zane.
Yeah, so it was pretty
I
bad.
don't think you're one to speak.
Huh?
About not waking up.
You're not going to set off fireworks, though. And like Zane, we had set off fireworks.
What about a fire alarm?
Ridiculous. Huh?
What about a burnt pizza?
Oh, yeah. That burnt pizza doesn't make
The
noise.
fire alarm, though, didn't do it.
It didn't go off? Oh, okay.
It didn't go off until, he woke up when it went off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it took until the house was full of smoke. That's another story.
Yeah.
And y'all were kids. Y'all were all bad. Ain't nobody better
I
than
can't
that.
speak
Y'all are
for
all
you.
terrible.
Oh,
Y'all were terrible kids, all right? But the bottom line is this. She says, my sister's still asleep. Dad's in there, and he's freaked out. At that point, she saw it in her dad's eyes. The first time I ever saw fear in his eyes. Her dad played college football. Her dad was a strong guy. He was not an intimidated guy. He was a very alpha male type dude. But he was abusive. He was abusive to his wife and abusive to the children. And like she said, it started when they were living there. And she said that what happened was after the first appearance of this child, it was not benign ever again. That was the first period where it was waving and being nice. It started with it throwing those things around And then one day, she opens the shower curtain to get out of the bath. She said she was 12 years old at this point. She had felt the presence of things before, but she had not seen another apparition for a while. She gets out and she sees this, what looks like a little girl, younger than her, sitting on the toilet. And she's like staring at her, and she's like, who is this? And she, it was a house full of kids. And she said that she thought maybe it was like a friend or a neighbor, whatever. And then she gets freaked out. So she just throws her towel on and then runs out of, grabs her clothes and then runs across the hall to her bedroom. This child or whatever opens the door and just methodically walks behind her. Follows her into her bedroom, and then she turns around and there's nothing there. Then about 10 minutes later, they hear this like window breaking, earth shattering scream, like a woman, like a grown woman screaming at the top of her lungs. Her mother's downstairs with a friend of theirs, and they come running up the stairs, and she's like, what is going on? At this point, her mom, no, it was her mom, it wasn't her mom, so it was her mom's sister was with them, and they went upstairs extremely agitated with everybody, thinking that one of the girls had made this noise. But her aunt was like, I think her name was like Janelle or something like that, but then Janelle said, she goes, I don't think that was a child. I don't think that was a girl. I don't think that was one of the girls. I think that was an adult. And she's like, yeah, well, it came from upstairs. The mother did not want to believe this. So the dad comes home. He'd been out drinking, carousing, whatever. He comes home. Everybody's all freaked out. Everybody's downstairs in the living room. All the kids, everybody. And he's like, what's going on? And they're like, somebody was screaming upstairs. Got everybody upset. Everybody's scared. He orders his sister-in-law to go home. Take your ass home, he said, and then he said, I'm going to deal with you, and he grabs the mom and takes her upstairs and was abusive. The children had to witness this and go through this. Eventually, when she was 14 years old, she witnessed something throw her dad down the stairs. Not push, not shove, but literally tossed this man down the stairs, breaking both of his arms. Then he ended up on disability, and he couldn't work, and then he became more of an alcoholic until he was living in like a flea bag motel and was doing all kinds of stuff, drugs, booze, whatever. They almost lost their house, but this guy's dad, their grandfather, stepped up and helped pay for their mortgage. And her mother got a better job and worked 2 jobs. Eventually, she found another guy and got remarried. And it was somebody that lived down the street. It was a widower that lived down the road. And her dad always thought that they had an affair or something, and that's why they ended up marrying, when in truth, they were just good friends. And she don't think that there was anything that happened. But something convinced the dad that there was all this nefarious things going on, people plotting and scheming against him, even his own children, because he would go into their room and just argue and scream and yell at them for hours, not letting them sleep, and going through all kinds of manic moods from the drinking. One of the nights that this happened, she's like, my cousin was over. She's like, I was like 13 years old. My dad comes in there in one of his moods. My sister was 15. She's like, when we were sitting there, we were just like, we both played tennis. And my dad was in one of his moods. It was about a year, she said about 2 years before he bottomed out and ended up losing his job. And he started telling them how worthless they were and blah, 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 blah. And they hear this snickering, like laughter. And they both look and over their dad's shoulder. And he's like, don't look over there, look at me. Don't be worrying about what's going on over there. And they're looking and they see this what looks like a child, like a small child, like a little boy, with hollowed out eyes and weird looking, like goblin teeth, as she said, little jaggedy looking teeth. And he looked like a little goblin.
Huh.
She said it was horrible, and he was staring at them, and he was laughing at them as they were being chastised. And she said it was so evil and so sinister. And she said, but at the same, not only was I terrified, but I also was angry. She's like, I wanted to hurt this little demon, this little thing, because I knew that it was causing a lot of these problems.
Yeah, kick it, step on it.
Well, it wasn't that small. She said it was like the size of like a 6-year-old child. Mm-hmm. And she said that she knew in her heart that these entities were causing these problems. Another horrific thing that happened before, I'm going to get to the really scary one that I remember just really got me. She said, I was in the kitchen and I was making some food, and she's like, and I was just heating up some cans of soup. And at that point, my mom and dad's marriage was on the rocks, and it was just a nightmare. Thank you for that donation, April. We appreciate that so much. And once again, Rita, thank you for that massive donation. It was amazing. It's the biggest donation we've ever gotten.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Not to take away from anyone else's donation, but I have to give credit where credit is due. You guys are very generous. Thank you for helping. At this rate, we can just, we get the food drive covered, or maybe we could do more. We could help more people. But so she ends up turning around while she's making the food because she hears footsteps, and she sees what looks like a woman who's doing this with her face, has her hand over, I don't remember if she said right or left, but it was on her face, and she's like, you could see through the hand, the eyes. She's like, the other eye was closed, but you could see the other eye looking at her, and she's like, there was just blood all over the side of her face, dripping down her blouse, everything. And she was screaming, help me. And she was staggering into the kitchen. And she's like, and I'm standing there in terror, just looking at this woman, and I'm making food for my little brother and me. And she's like, and I'm just like, go away from me. Go away from me. She's like, I'm begging this entity. She's like, I can't help you. Please, in the name of Jesus, go away from me. She's like, the first time she'd ever thought to do that. So they didn't go to church. The neighbors had told her, say in the name of Jesus. So she did. She's like, please go away from me. I cannot help you. Leave me alone. And it just disappeared. Now, that one didn't dissipate into specks. Like this one just was like poof, and it was gone. And she said, I freaked out. She goes, I just collapsed to my knees and began crying. She's like, I could not take it anymore. I did not want to live here. So at that point, she did something very foolish, but I can understand, I do, but you should never do something like this. She just packed a bag, called a friend who was not necessarily a good influence from the old neighborhood, and had them come pick her up, and she went and she stayed with them for a little while, didn't tell her parents where they were at, and eventually she was pronounced a runaway. And they began looking for her, and the friend of hers mother eventually said, look, you can't just hang out here. But instead of going home, she went to another friend's house, and then another friend, and before you know it, it was a week and a half, and everybody was looking for her. Finally, she called her mom, and her mom went and picked her up. And her mother, for the first time in her life, actually told her how much she loved her, how much she cared about her. She's like, I'm sure she did before. She's like, but I don't remember it. I never remember her doing that. I never remember her telling me how much she loved me or cared about me. And it made me wonder if she even did.
She probably, I was going to say she probably felt it right there. And I think that's why
yeah, I'm sure
it probably stuck out to her more than other times. Thank you, Mystic and Miguel, for those donations.
Thank you. And so whenever this whole thing went down, when she Came back to her house, whatever. I said, did it do anything to quell the haunting? She's like, no. She's like, there was no escaping it. Like, you could not get away from it. She's like, and then she's like, I would be at school and I would see this one in particular, this one entity, the girl, the little girl with no eyes. She would see her walking around in the hallway. And her sister saw it too. It would follow them to school. Even one of her friends at school saw it. So she knew it wasn't a figment of her imagination. She goes, her and her friend went into the bathroom.
Wow.
And they saw this little girl standing in the corner, turned around and just like was staring at them. One of the scariest things though that happened, okay, and I'm going to get to that now. She's like, I had some friends over, I had 2 friends over, and we were playing Barbies. And then we decided to go and lay down and go because we were just so tired we couldn't stay awake. And she's like, we were just like not interested. She's like, this was when she was like 11. She goes, we put the Barbies down and we just went and got into the bed. She's like, and then she goes, I kept waking up at night and I would hear what I thought was somebody playing in my room or moving my toys around and things like that. Sometimes even our little TV would come on.
Yeah.
But she's like, yes, Elle, this is still the first story. Yes. This is all part of the same story. Would you like me to quit telling it and just jump into another one? Because, I mean, let's do all the things that you want to do.
One thing I've learned after so many stories is never go to a sleepover. Nothing good happens at sleepovers. Whether it's Ouija boards or werewolves popping out of closets, nothing good happens.
This is why you shouldn't let your kids go to sleepovers.
Yep.
Especially when you're...
Hey, look, all I'm saying is I think that Harry Potter, his uncle probably had a good idea there. Just keep him in the closet, nice and safe, under the stairs.
Yeah. So, what ended up happening, and this was really creepy, she's sitting there with her friends, and they're on the bed, and she's like, there's 3 of us in this bed. The sister was on the other bed. She would sprawl out, and nobody wanted to sleep on the bed with her because she would kick and swing and do things. So she was like, we're all in the bed, and little kids, they all fit on the bed. And she said, we hear what sounds like a child or something talking, like muttering, but they couldn't make out what it was. She's like, and I had this little flashlight. She's like, and my friend grabbed it and shined it. And we saw this black, like a shadow of a person, get up and run real fast into the hallway. She's like, and then we turned it off and we were like, oh my gosh, everybody's freaked out. And she says, we're sitting there in the bed. Get this. She's like, while we're sitting there, she's like, we hear stuff moving around on the floor. So my friend shines the light on the floor. She's like, 3 of the Barbies are standing up. And it looks like somebody was, how when you pick up a Barbie and you put it up and down like it's walking?
Yeah.
It was moving like that. And one was just kind of like teeter-tottering back and forth. And 2 were moving around like they were being played with. She said then they all just kind of fall. She's like, and then she's like, they see a couple of the toys be kind of kicked out of the way. And then all of a sudden they hear footfall like run toward the bed.
Oh no.
When she told me that part of the story, I'm sitting in a dimly lit study, folks, okay? And I was like, oh no, hold on. Told her, I was like, it takes a lot to unnerve me. I hear these stories like all day, every day, whatever. That part really got to me. I had to stand up and turn the light on, and I'm not joking. Okay. Yeah. Yes, you have a pistol by you. I mean, so what? What are you going to shoot through the wall? I mean, it's not going to, stop.
Yeah, there's something about that little pitter-patter of feet.
No, dude. And then going towards you and then knowing that that's maybe not be a little kid ghost. That could be something else.
Yeah, and it's also just like the puppetry of the puppetry of like the dolls and stuff is just weird to me.
Yeah.
Especially since you can't really see it, and you're just like I know something's doing that. I just have no idea how or what.
Moral of the story: don't buy your kids dolls. No sleepovers, no dolls,
No Barbies.
Control every aspect of their lives. Oppress everything about your children. Keep them safe.
I think that they were already being pretty oppressed, other than they were allowed to sleep over and things like that.
If they were oppressed more, this wouldn't have happened.
And it was like when the dad was there and he was a nightmare. Some of the things she was telling me, which I'm not going to talk about on the show because it doesn't pertain to the show. Amy Krill says Anthony's going to be a great. We think so.
Kids love him for some reason.
It's what does it say? Marquetta says that's scary. I've experienced something similar. What?
Oh no,
Ricardo, you've been on the show. Marquetta's told me some crazy stuff. I don't know. When she was on the show, did she talk about the ghost stuff? Because I don't think she talked as much about that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's when we left some meat on the bone for that one too. But that to me was like one of the scariest things. Another time, and it was Christmas time, and it's Christmas time right now. But she said that her dad was up on the roof. Then this is something that when her dad was dying, and they went to go see him in the hospital, he confessed to them a bunch of stuff. One of the things that he confessed to, he says, look, I know I haven't been the best dad. I haven't been a good guy. He's like, but there was this entity, this being, as he called it, that started coming to him first in his dreams, and then it became more prominent to where it was materializing in his room, and it was a woman. And here's where it gets really weird. I mean, like, it ain't already weird, but the dad began to have relations with this female entity. First unwillingly, then it was just like he would just let it happen.
Yeah.
And he said, and it was always in a dreamlike state until one day it wasn't. And he's like, and then it was like it was manifesting as a physical being. And he goes, I thought it was a beautiful woman. He's like, and then one day I was doing something and I looked in the mirror and I see this ridge on its back with like all these scales, and it had a tail that was like flopping around. And he's like, and I looked in the mirror and I saw the side of its face and it looked like a lizard.
Wow. Gross.
And then that's when he got out of there and he went to stay in this motel. Yeah. The woman that he was having the affair with on his wife got attacked and got her face, well, the way he described it, stabbed by some random woman that was walking down the street screaming. And that woman took a piece of her cheek out by her own hands. And he thinks that this woman, that was possessed by the entity that he was having stuff with. When you take this story and you look at it from every angle, which I have, and you look at what happened to this guy and how he just gradually declined, this thing was draining his life force. There's no doubt about it. And it was causing him to be abusive to his wife, to his children. His best friend and him got into an argument, and he held a gun to the guy's chest in their garage, which their brother witnessed. And it was ridiculous. He said, I did things that I'm not proud of. He's like, I turned to booze, I turned to drugs, and in the end, he lost everything. He lost his family. He ended up getting a court order. Dude, you really should just go home, bro, for real. You're just, it's not
You down for the
working.
count?
Yeah, I'm going to take a nap in the other room real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Just wake me up on the thing.
So, so what ended up happening, this guy could not overcome his demons, and no pun intended. It was what it was to me. And ultimately, he just drank himself to death. And I asked her, I said, Trini, did he ever manage to get away from this thing? She goes, I don't think so. She's like, even when I was in the hospital and talking to him and he was dying, I felt the presence of something there. She's like, and then she goes, I get up with my sister and we walk out while my brother's there with him. My brother falls asleep. She's like, and we walk out. And then while my brother's sleeping, and she said my brother was always not responsible. He was kind of spoiled compared to the other kids. She said that their dad just passed away while they were getting up to get coffee. And the brother is awakened not by the sound of someone dying, but by a laugh, a wicked female laugh.
Tony's not driving, guys.
What is it?
They're under the impression that Tony's going to be driving.
We're worried about Tony driving. No, he can drive. Let him. He falls asleep driving all the time. That's just how he rolls. That's how he rolls, literally, pun intended. He just rolls like, Well, he didn't bother to take a nap today. He just stayed up and went and partied. So
it's always good for a man to nap while he drives.
Mm-hmm. Puts hair on your chest.
As well as just, you crack open a cold one, you help you relax.
You live until you don't.
Things happen.
Yeah. Get an Uber, Mushu. No, he's going. We have.
I can bring the couch up here.
Yeah, we go get it. We have it downstairs. So we actually have a couch we just got. We threw out the old one. We got tired of the bed bugs, the fleas, and the lice. It was sent to us by AI. We didn't know at the time that they were sending us a Trojan horse. I'm kidding, folks. And the roaches just crawled all out of it. It was a big mess. It was horrible. No, Davy Jones Locker, here we go, Buffalo. What is that? Because they beat the Cowboys? The way the Cowboys played today, I think you and I, Davey, could go out there and beat them. Maybe you throw in Anthony, Tony, and Banjo. It's not some big accomplishment. They definitely fall flat. They don't do too good once they leave Dallas, which is going to be a problem because they're going to be a wild card team and they're not going to win. So unless some kind of miracle takes place, which, But it's really up to the refs. The refs are going to pretty much they're deciding every game at this point, so I don't even care. I don't care what happens in the NFL, okay, the no fun league, because the referees are basically deciding the outcome of every game. That's all I got to say about that. So you have this situation. Penny van, do we have extra blankets? No, we don't. He can sleep in there without a blanket. He's a big boy. He's a big guy, whatever. He was very irresponsible today, too. He just decided, I'm just going to stay awake and go do whatever and then try to come and do the show. Thank goodness he didn't have to work tonight. That'd be a real problem. But, the whole situation just devolved into a big old mess. The fact that he passed away, too, while they were out getting some coffee makes it even weirder. And I've often wondered, this isn't the first time I've heard of something like this happening. Hey, can one of y'all grab me a tea? Just at the store right there, when y'all go grab it real quick. You can bring it up first. And I've often wondered that because I've heard there was a guy in Mexico who lived in one of the border towns, and he went down there to meet with his grandfather, and he gets up to go grab him a blanket, and the next thing you know, he comes back and a pillow, and he comes back and he's gone. He's passed away. Clearly, you need a female-y influence there at the studio, Wolf. Yeah, that's what Nellie's for. She's not here right now. Is there something I can help you with? Yeah, people do that. Can I help you? And you're like, no. Well, who do you want? They're always, the receptionist ladies are always real nosy. Why? Why can't I help you? Because you know who I'm looking for. Right? That's when you grab the stapler and just go, whoosh. throw it against the wall. Why did you do that? Because I told you you're not who I'm looking for. Why do you keep asking? See, we're both asking questions. That'll stop them. I don't know. That's my method. That's just how I roll. Until the security gets called, right? And then you got to explain to them. I just didn't like the look of that stapler. It looked unsafe. It looked like it might get up and, I don't know, staple everybody's face. Did you a favor by breaking it. So here's the thing. You have a situation where somebody passes away and they hear this laughter. Now, I asked her, I said, how many times did you hear that? She said, I heard that twice a month, probably. This creepy laughter coming from my parents' bedroom, especially when they weren't there. Sometimes when my parents would be in the bathroom, one of them would be asleep, and we'd hear the laughter, and it got so common that we just began to ignore it. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. So what do you do? I know if it was me, I would have probably tried to move in with a friend, which actually I did as a teenager. I lived with my friend's family. But I would have tried to go stay with a cousin or whatever. And so she says, you don't think I tried? I did that as a teenager. I couldn't leave. I was trapped. So you got to understand, like she felt like she was stuck. There's nothing she could do. She's a teenager, you know, and eventually, you know, in her 20s, which in her late 20s, her dad had passed away. She's like, we went back to visit the old neighborhood that we were living in, you know, the one where this house was. We had some friends whose families still live there. The friends, the family members of the friends where they grew up with. They said that house had been a revolving door. People moving in, then moving out. Moving in, moving out. You could take the legs off of that thing. They unscrew. I know I had to take it out by myself out of the truck. So, give me your thoughts. What would you do? Because, you know, when you're a teenager, you don't really have a lot of rights. You can't do a whole lot. But, yeah, so many people bought that house and then moved out. I asked her, I said, did you ever look into the history of the house? She said, no, I didn't. I don't want to know. I can understand that because for a long time I didn't look into the history of mine. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, Liberty, you're right. As an adult, you could have it blessed. As a teenager, you can't do that. It's not your call. Her dad was very much in control, and he was not into God. Don't worry about that. Just put it up against the wall. So she said that they're moving the couch in. You got it? Cool. So they ended up having their dad pass away. He claims to them that he found his way back to God, but they remain dubious. They don't remember him ever praying with them or doing anything godly. And she asked me about that. She asked me if I thought that her dad found peace. And I said, I don't know. I can't tell you. I would say Jordan Cogburn, DM me. I think you're talking about Dogman, has been doing live streams. Funny. I'm sure he doesn't show himself. So what does he do? He just shows his little picture, little pulsating picture or whatever. How are they doing? How are the live streams? Sure, they're a barrel of monkeys. This is monkey see, monkey do, right? We do it, so he's got to try to do it and see what he can do. Yeah. Thinks he's going to benefit from this war between me and DW. They'll both put you to sleep. If you need a sleep aid. I have several friends who used to listen to me on that show, and they'd be like, dude, we listen to it to go to sleep. My boyfriend Mike used to kind of make me mad. I mean, like, but I understood, the guy's voice is like, oh my gosh, stuff people listen to these days. I'll have to go check it out. I knew he was doing live streams. I haven't seen one of them. I don't know what that, I don't like giving any of those people views. There are a lot of people who I like, a lot of people whose shows I will promote and I like. And then there's a handful of these chiseler morons that I just cannot condone. He wishes, Amy. He wishes he was. But it'd be an improvement if he was. Here's the thing. If you are one of these people who's an experiencer and you have a story to tell and you like the way I retell people's stories, give it to me. If you want me to retell it, or if you want to come on the show and tell it yourself, you can do that. Trini was not a person that really wanted. She was kind of torn between telling it and then not feeling confident. And she felt like she would need time. And I told her, I said, I really want to tell this story. So she said, go ahead. So maybe one day she'll want to come on and tell it in her own words, but I pretty much gave you all the information I have about it. I don't think I left anything out. When you take that story, each individual part of that story can be used as something, standalone, separate. But that's what I mean, though, by getting the whole tale. Now, let's get into her cousin's Dogman encounter, shall we? This happened in Delaware. Now, there's a military base there. I'm not going to get into the name of it and start talking about it and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But her dad was in the military. That particular base had some weird stuff happen at different times. Not the least of which was her dad being assigned to find a soldier that had gone missing. He just went AWOL. When this guy was found, he had a really strange story to tell her dad. A weird tale, which I haven't gotten all the details from it because her dad's supposed to get in touch with me and tell it. He's been retired for about 10 years now from the military. And the story that he told was a shocking one of, I think, alien abduction would be the best way to describe it. This is her cousin. This is the person who's lived in the house in Connecticut. This is how I met her. This is her cousin's story. She said, I was driving with my dad. She's like, I was like 12 years old. We were going through the Northeast. We were up in the Piney Woods of southern New Jersey. The Pine Barrens, the Jersey Devil. She said, we see this thing run across the road. We were headed to go camping. She said, we were going to go meet my dad's girlfriend and her daughter for a camping trip. We're driving up to the woods. She's like, and we see this thing run out into the road and then dart back the other way. She said it looked like a dog, but black and shaggy, but it had like a beard. And I thought that was weird. And I asked her, I said, a beard? You know, like I got a beard. But what kind of beard are we talking about? She said, it looked weird. She's like, the face. It was almost like a person. Really bizarre. She's like, I couldn't get my mind off of it. Her dad was just like, oh, that was a weird dog. What a weird dog. Or a wolf. I don't know. She's like, but it was, you know, almost like an Irish wolfhound. The shagginess, you know. She said for years she was looking for the type of dog that it was. She's like, we get to the campsite. And she's like, and I don't remember the name of it. She's like, I was little. She's like, and I just remember as soon as we got there, I got really sleepy. And she's like, and I didn't really get along real well with my dad's girlfriend or her weird daughter. Daughter was a year younger than her. She said her daughter was weird. She would talk to herself and would get into like arguments with herself. She's like, this is the kind of person she was. It was weird. And she's like, and ultimately my dad got engaged and married this woman. She's like, and I was forced to live with this weird kid who, not a surprise, didn't do too good in school, had a lot of problems, had a lot of people that didn't like her, made fun of her. And she's like, and I was caught in the middle and I was always being chastised by my dad and my stepmom, but why I didn't take up for her, whatever. And she's like, because she does weird shit. Simple as that. And she brings it on herself. But, and she also thinks that this kid had something to do with why this encounter happened. The kid had wandered off, and she said to my dad, she's like, I got to be honest, she was very irresponsible. It's like all he cared about, he was enthralled by this woman. It's like all he cared about was being with Cherie. That's the stepmom that became the stepmom. She's like, my dad didn't give a crap about nothing but that. She said, we're up there in the Pine Barrens. Well, she called them the Piney Woods, but it's the Pine Barrens. She's like, we hear this loud shriek. And it made this woman's daughter jump at the little picnic table. She gets freaked out. Next thing you know, you turn around, she's gone. And the dad's like, did you see her? She's like, well, I thought I saw her head up that trail near this lake, little pond or whatever. My dad tells me, 12-year-old kid, go look for her. She's like, excuse me? Like, go look for her. So she goes down this trail, calling this kid's name. She's like, I get up to the pond. She's like, and I look across, and I see this little turd, she used a different word, across the pond. She like waves and then goes into the woods. She said, at this point, she sees this thing on two legs walk out of the woods, stare at her, give her a really mean, nasty look, and walk back into the woods. And she says, it was the first and only time in my whole life I ever passed out. She's like, the fear was so strong. She's like, my heart started to race. She goes, and I couldn't control my, thoughts, my emotions, everything. She goes, and I just fell over. Completely went unconscious. And she's like, I come to pretty quick. She's like, and I sit up and I'm like, I get up and I run back to the camp, which isn't that far away. She estimated is a few hundred yards. She goes running back. She gets her dad and the stepmom, the future stepmom, and says, hey, you know, your daughter, I'm not going to say the kid's name because, you know, whatever. And so they go follow her. They go around the lake, and then they don't see her. She points into the woods where she saw her. But then she tells them, she's like, she was with this thing. Her dad and her future stepmom, the girlfriend, whatever. It's like, what thing? She's like, I don't know. She's like, Dad, it looked like that dog thing, that black, shaggy dog thing with the weird-looking beard. It looked like that. And he's like, oh, come on. That was like, 50 miles away. She's like, yes. And it was standing on two legs. So, I mean, you and I don't blame the guy. He's never seen anything like this. He doesn't know. The only weird thing that ever happened to him was when this guy, he was told to go find from the military base and says that he had a weird close encounter with aliens. That was the weirdest thing that ever happened to him. So this guy, you can't expect this guy to actually just be like, oh, okay. There's a dog walking around on two legs, and they just abducted my girlfriend's daughter. Like, you can't expect him to just be okay with that because a 12-year-old just told you that, right? So you can't expect that, and you got to understand that. This guy's like, shut up, whatever. So he said some things to her. She said, up to this point, me and my dad had always had a really good relationship. My mother, she's like, had left when I was very young. She's like, I never knew why. She's like, my mother was never nice to me. We didn't get along, so I didn't ask. She's like, my younger half-sister, who she later reconnected with, described her mother as a holy terror who did all kinds of bad things. I'm not going to get into it. But she said that her dad had done her a favor by getting her away from it. As bad as her stepmother was more like just not caring. Let's put it, than neglectful. She wasn't like malicious in the way that she didn't physically hurt her, but it was just like neglect, Didn't care about her. Didn't want to deal with her, didn't have anything to do with her. And so the dad and the mom look around everywhere for like 2 hours. They're all walking around the woods. Her and the stepmom are looking in one area. The dad's looking for another. Finally, they give up and they go back to camp. And when they come back, she's there asleep. What she tells me is that this little girl, okay, gives them a story of a dog-like being that waved at her from across the lake when she went over there to this creature, because for whatever reason this kid doesn't have any fear of this thing. It tries to lure her back to a cave. When it gets to the mouth or the opening of a cave, she said that this thing walked into the cave and motioned for her to come. She said she felt terrified, and she heard a screech or like a scream, but she couldn't really describe what it was, come from the cave, which sounded like a female's voice. She turned around and she ran, and then she ran and she found a hollowed out tree, which she climbed inside of, and she watched as this creature walked around looking for her, sniffing the air. The creature was described as being black, with gray, with tufts of gray all over it. And it had a long, shaggy beard like a person. The face was described as like having a snout, almost cartoonish, with a sunken-in head at the top. I don't know what that means. A very pointy head with weird ears. And she said that it was very dog-like. I don't get a lot of stories that describe Dogman as looking dog-like, but this is one of them. So I thought it was interesting. She saw a Dogman. An actual Dogman, like a man-dog looking thing. Walking around its hind legs, really skinny legs, lower body. The midsection was long, elongated. And it kept jumping, down on all fours and then jumping back up on its, and that was her words. So what happened, they were there for one more night. The kid was not perturbed by this. She was, because she was just in absolute terror of what she saw. She says, I got a good look at it again. She's like, oh yeah, I went to sleep and I wake up. She's like, and 2 a.m., the last night that we were there, which would have been the next night. She's like, everybody's asleep, and I see this creature walking over to the sleeping bag in the tent where we were at, me and this girl. She's like, and I see it in the tent, shaking her legs. She's like, I roll over, I wake up, and I'm like, she's like, there it is, this creature, this blackish, grayish looking creature, this dog-like entity. And then it turned and it lifted up one side of its face and snarled at her. And I asked her, was there any mind speak or anything? Like, she goes, what is that? I said, well, like, did it have any sort of telepathy? She says, oh, no, it didn't do anything like that. It was very animalistic. She's like, it backed away because it heard a noise. She's like, and it began to look around. She goes, and here's the weirdest part. She's like, whatever it heard, it got down on all fours and it ran into the woods. To this day, to this very day, and this is the weirdest part of this story, and I don't know what this was. She's like, there was something there in the woods that frightened this thing. She's like, I don't know if it was the Jersey Devil. I don't know if it was Bigfoot. She's like, but I saw something large and black just kind of move in between the trees. And she's like, this thing was so wide and so massive. She's like, that it was the size of like 3 of these really large trees together. You could see on either side of this thing behind each tree when it moved. And she thinks that it was a Bigfoot. That was her sort of, And 20 years later, she goes back there with her boyfriend. Thank you. I just wanted a tea from the store. I didn't need a Taco Cabana tea, but that's fine.
They don't have one sweet tea there, just sweet.
Oh, okay. They're hating on people who don't like sugar. They're like, no, American, you like sugar. Eat it. I'm like, no. But she says, I had the weirdest dream when I was there. Wonderful. Just threw trash on the ground. We'll get it after the show. And so she says, I go there with my boyfriend. She's like, we had a good time. Roasted weenies and marshmallows and ate and had fun. His brother came and his girlfriend, and we all had a good time. She's like, wasn't far from the original campsite. Right? She's like, we had a great time. I drift off to sleep. She's like, we're in the back. We're sitting in lawn chairs. She's like, the thing that had happened to me as a kid was almost like a distant dream. She's like, me and my boyfriend, we were sitting there talking, looking up at the stars, and we fell asleep. There was a small, like one of those trailer RVs that her brother and his girlfriend brought. She's like, they were inside, and we were getting ready to get up and go and get in the back of the camper truck. It was her boyfriend's uncle's camper. I think the thing that they had was called a scamper, actually. But they were going to get back in the camper and go to sleep. And she's like, and as we're getting up to leave, we hear this loud whooping roar. They get all freaked out. Her brother's, her boyfriend's brother's girlfriend comes out, who they became really good friends. Her name was Sandra. She goes, Sandra comes out. We start talking, and she's like, what was that, y'all? Did y'all hear that? What was that? And she's like, I don't know what that was. It was really weird. It was really loud, and it scared the living crap out of us. She's like, and then we hear a crack, pow. Like something had broken a large tree. So they were uneasy for a couple hours, so they all just sat around talking for a little while longer. She starts getting sleepy again, so then they go and they get in the back of the camper and they go to sleep. And that was the end of the first night. The second night, after they had gone fishing and done a few things and had some fun, she's like, I decided to tell them a story. She's like, the first night I was too scared. I didn't want to think about it. She's like, but I told him, I said, we're out there fishing. I said, look, I came here 20 some odd years ago with my weird ass stepsister and my dad and my stepmom. And she says, here's what happened. So she tells them the whole story of this creature that she saw 2 times. And she says that it was messing with the girl that, became her stepsister. And she said that there's no love lost between me and my stepsister. She did a lot of really weird things that culminated with her just being mean and nasty, really, and conspiring with her stepmom to do mean and nasty things to her. And eventually, once she got old enough, she just quit talking to all of them and pretty much disavowed her own dad because he wouldn't do anything about the stepmom. So she's like, I just wrote him off. She's like, my dad helped me for years. He gave me money, did things like that. But he wouldn't do anything beyond that, and he stuck up for my neglectful, evil stepmom. So I just, whatever. She's like, for the most part, she wasn't really that malicious. She did get worse when I got older, and it was time for me to move out. I was 19. She made it very clear she didn't want me there, so she started pulling all kinds of shenanigans. She's like, and up to that point, it was just like she just pretended like I didn't exist, which is wrong. That's wrong. I had a stepmom. Terrible, not a good person. I know how it goes. So she said, I had this weird feeling that something was going to happen. She's like, I hope that it wouldn't. She's like, and everything felt so peaceful and calm. She's like, but then I told him what happened. And her boyfriend's brother told her that he had heard stories of Bigfoot being in that area and Jersey Devil stories of a flying humanoid creature. Weird stuff. Weird stuff. So then she goes to sleep that night. And she says, I don't know if it's because I talked about this thing and if it was real. And she's like, but I had a dream. And in this dream, she's like, I wake up. She's like, and I look out the window of this camper and I see this humanoid shape. That's the word she used. She said it was humanoid. She said it looked like the cross between a Neanderthal and a gorilla. She's like, and it's staring at me, and it's got these red eyes. And she's like, and then as it gets more focused, and she can open her eyes get more focused. She says, I could see this thing clearly looking at me. She's like, and the eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger till they were almost the size of like reflectors. The back of a vehicle, like brake lights, reflectors, whatever. She's like, I see it. And she's like, and then I wake up. And I thought, was that a dream? What was that? And then she says, I thought, I want to get out of here. I want to leave this place. So her boyfriend, the next day, they wake up and they make some breakfast and they're enjoying their camping, whatever. She tells her boyfriend, she's like, you know, I don't want to be here. I don't like this place. And last night, I think I had a dream, but I couldn't tell you for sure if it was. He says, what do you mean? She says, I saw something looking at me through the window. At that point, now get this. This is a really weird part. This is why it's called the Bigfoot phenomenon, folks. Check out my book. You'll see what I'm talking about. And this guy, he says, I dreamed that too. He's like, I think it was a dream. She goes, well, it must have been a different time if it wasn't a dream, because when I woke up, you were snoring and sound asleep. And he goes, that's weird, because when I woke up and I saw this thing, I immediately thought, I'm dreaming. So I just thought nothing of it. And in the dream, you were asleep. So what the heck was going on here? You had two people in the back of a camper who both saw something, but it was while they were asleep. Right? An ape-like creature with red eyes. In the same area, same vicinity at least, I mean, like probably, a few miles apart, where 20 some odd years before, her and her weird stepsister, whatever, had this dogman encounter. And I say dogman because it was like a dog. Like an Irish wolfhound with pointy ears. Do you see what I'm saying? I got to grab something. You want to take over for just a minute? I'll be right back, folks. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Let's go.
All right, so what do we got here in the chat? I don't know what questions y'all have for like the general goings on and the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, just whatever you're. Excuse me. Sorry, I just got finished eating. I haven't eaten anything today. So if you have any questions about anything that y'all want to ask, and I can answer them, I'll try. And if not, then hey, I'll just ignore you, and then you'll probably get mad at me and get inside your head and be like, I asked Anthony a question, and I know he saw it, and he ignored me, and I'm mad at him now, right? He sucks, and his hair sucks, and his beard's ugly, and his face is always dry or something. All right, hang on. Let's see what we got. Oh, by the way, to the moderators, if y'all could, first off, y'all are doing a great job, but do me a favor, because I'm gonna try and not read the chat as much while Wolf is talking and telling a story. Because normally, like, when you see the camera pan over to me, I'm kind of looking down like this, like my eyes are down. That's because I'm looking at my phone. And I really don't like that, because first off, it looks like I'm not paying attention, and it kind of looks like I'm sleeping. But it's actually me trying to read the chat and moderate myself while trying to listen to the story and engage, and it throws me off. Like, it splits my focus. And I think it makes for a better show if I can just kind of focus on what he's saying and know that mods, y'all got it. So I just want to give y'all that heads up. Like, I'm gonna be kind of stepping back from reading the chat and moderating, so that y'all can do it. And if y'all could just pick that up, that would be great. That'd be a big help. And I think it'd be a better show. When our focus, mine and Tony's focus, doesn't have to be split between listening to Wolf and trying to read the chat and moderate.
Yeah. And looking at my phone, people are like, oh, he looks at his phone. That's not just looking for what do you call it? A lot of it's work. because I get messages from work. And every hour from 6 o'clock until 11, we get clock-ins. So I check those, and then we get messages and stuff about stuff that's going on posts. So I got to deal with work. It's what it is. They're like, he's looking at his phone. Believe me, it's nothing exciting. Wish it was. But I don't know why they're so worried about it. Why are they so preoccupied with me all the time?
It's funny. Like I kind of jokingly said, jokingly asked them if they had any questions while you were gone, and said, hey, if I can't answer it, I'll just ignore it and you'll get mad at me. And it ended up like not answering any of them because you came back.
And also, please let us know if you have not received anything, because this coming week, we're going to try and get everything mailed out for the end of the year. Okay? So let us know. If we owe you something, please tell me. Okay? Because I can't keep up. I don't know who's owed what. But don't feel like you're aggravating us by telling us, because we need to know, or otherwise we won't know. I'm sorry that there are a few people who haven't gotten stuff. You will. I promise. Just let me know. We'll make a note of it, because we're in transition up here at the studio and everything's a big mess. But what does it say? Hannon? Do Bigfoots kill Dogman? Yeah, and then Dogman kills Bigfoot.
Yeah, they've definitely got reports of them fighting. They're not friends at all.
They're not really, well, I don't know about at all. We've had some reports of them working together too. But they do kill each other. Yes, I do believe that.
I think like dogmen and like reptilians especially hate each other.
Yeah, they do. But then again, we have reports of them working together too, like you're going to hear about on Tuesday.
Everything hates the rake. Or Wendigo rake, the pale crawler is called.
I call it the leopard of the cryptid kingdom. It's like the leopard, It's not.
Oh, the leopard doesn't get along with anything?
No, it's a solitary species that it'll kill, when it gets the chance, it'll kill cheetahs and hyenas, which are lower on the totem pole. But typically it doesn't. If it only goes after hyenas when they're alone, because hyenas usually run around in packs, and they will kill a leopard on sight, just like baboons will, and just like lions will. Leopards are highly aggressive, and they actually kill more people than any of those other animals.
Oh, wow.
They live up in trees, and they will hunt people. Because leopards, and I'll give you a quick lesson about animals here, leopards actually, their kill ratio, they don't do as good because they're solitary. And in the animal kingdom, that's not a good way to make a living. But they aren't liked by any of the other animals. So any of those other animals gets a chance, they will kill a leopard. Just like, because the leopards will kill their young.
Yeah.
So one of the things leopards do is whenever these other animals are away, they'll try to sneak in and kill their young, because it gives them a leg up. And you got to remember, leopard is the 4th largest cat. You know what order it goes in?
Probably. I think a tiger is bigger than a lion.
A male tiger is about 100 pounds bigger than a male lion, typically.
Probably a tiger, lion. I don't know what the third.
Jaguar.
Okay.
Jaguar, then the leopard, and then the puma. But you got to remember too, the leopard lives in Africa. They don't live in South America. South America is the home of the jaguar. Now they're related, and somewhere millions of years ago, and I don't mean like hundreds of million years ago, just like a few million years, they diverged into 2 separate species. But at one time, they were probably the same species. Jaguars don't hang out in trees as much because they're so heavy. Jaguars are big, bad dudes. I've seen one really close, like almost like maybe a few feet behind where you're sitting.
Yeah.
And so in the wild. It was a scary experience. It just came running out real quick. And somebody else dealt with it, but it was right there. I mean, it was a crazy thing. Now, I've seen a leopard up in a tree, but at a distance, it wasn't real close to me, and it wasn't posing any threat or anything. But they're pretty big cats too. I posted a video on my Facebook. Go check it out. If you just scroll down, you can find it. There's these baboons that this male baboon took on a full-grown leopard and started fighting him. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, baboons are not to be messed with. They are not to be messed with. They are mean. A friend of mine, well, Tony's stepdad used to have one.
Oh no,
he owned one. Yeah, and it used to beat up his pit bulls. He had 3 pit bulls, and it would just beat them all up. And it was a female baboon. Wasn't even a male. Wasn't an alpha male. So anyway, I digress. Enough about leopards and lions and tigers and whatever. Scotty says, correct, Josh. Thank you. Scotty, are you a genius? Do you know these things? Do you know these? Are you qualified to tell me that I'm correct?
How do we even start talking about leopards?
Scotty doesn't even know. He needs to be beamed up because Josh Turner's a poo-poo cockahead, and I hate him. And that's pretty much how it goes. Sure you do. You hate me because you're retarded. What can I say? I hate that guy. I don't like when he opens his mouth. He said things with knowledge of his true stuff. I'm going to throw a rock.
Uses big words.
So, anyways, Scotty says, I know a few things. Fair enough. Spilling tea, what'd she say? I'm not she. Thank you. Freedom of the word. Bombardier. Okay, yeah, we're not supposed to say that, but you know, I mean, and I'm not talking about a kid who wears a helmet and bangs himself into lockers. I'm saying that that's not what I'm talking about. I'm using it in the word in the way that you're somebody that's stupid. These people up in Oklahoma, very stupid people, folks, very stupid. Okay, I'm just saying they're not batting 1,000. Okay, I stand by what I say too about how stupid they are. Okay. Especially when one of them up there, from the one from Louisiana, talking about, I was an honor to talk to this guy, Potato Head, and his big fat friend, and guy's so smart, and blah, 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 and I'm sure this is probably going to get back to you. Yeah, you're a stupid, fat Potato Head fiction writer. Okay? I prayed for you, but you couldn't even be bothered to say. So I would still pray for you again, but I still think you're a big, stupid, horrible writer. I stand by that. And the other one, he writes 50-page books, little golden books.
Pamphlets?
Little pamphlets. In fact, I think the Nazis dropped something bigger than that over Belgium and France when they were trying to get people to capitulate. They were bigger than what he writes. Like, open sea. I think we dropped his books on people. Hans, those are not books. Those are pamphlets. Imagine if somebody was stupid enough to write that and think that was a book.
That will never happen.
That would never happen. No one is that stupid.
No one will ever be that
It's like,
stupid.
hey, folks, welcome to the greatest storyteller the world has ever seen. Voodoo Man. And then he does. 53 pages, yo. Yes. 53 pages of electrified funk. I'm sure it's awesome, especially since the choke artist helped him write one of them. I'm sure he gave a lot of expert advice. When you see Bigfoot, just put it in a chokehold. Just pretend like it's a woman or a child and just give it a big choke. And stop saying you accepted my challenge because you didn't, Ace. Okay? Stop lying. You're still breathing, aren't you? You didn't accept my challenge. Talk about hyenas. Well, they're like, what's wrong with this man? He's crazy. Yeah, I'm crazy. I'm insane. Yes, I am. I'm also a genius. You wish you were. You're just crazy without the intelligence. That's what you are. It's called being stupid. Yeah. Can't even go and do a show together without saying something about me. Living in your head. Here's what happened, folks. So anyway, this woman up there in the Pine Barrens, she has this incident. When they leave, nothing happens the rest of her life up until the time she tells me. And get this, while she's on the phone with me, something whispers in her ear while we're talking. And it's like, don't talk to him. He's the devil. And she's like, oh my goodness. And she hangs up and I'm like, what happened? She texts me, you the devil. And we never talk again. True story, folks.
Definitely don't subscribe to Paranormal
True
Roundtable
story.
on YouTube.com. Well, that voice was very specific.
The voice was like, don't watch Paranormal Roundtable. Definitely don't watch his live stream. There's like a bunch of other people who do live streams and get like 50 people in the chat. You should watch them. They're much better.
Yeah.
Anyways, folks, if you sit back and you look at this situation, what do you think was going on? What was happening with this person? How is it that her and her boyfriend both had a dream about a Bigfoot, but they didn't actually leave that dream state and see it with their own eyes? Like when she woke up, it was a dream state, and she didn't see the thing standing there. But the night before, they heard a whooping call that sounded like something that could be a Bigfoot. So, I don't know. There was a sound that was played by Tex, and it was on his show. And so I told her, I said, go to that particular episode. I told her. The next night, she messaged me back, and she's like, oh, my gosh, me and my boyfriend played that. She's like, it sounded similar. Not completely, but it was similar, and it happened in Oklahoma, the one that Tex on Texas Front Porch. You can go check it out. I was on his show, and we talked, and it got a lot of views, that particular show. And I thought, you know what, this is really weird. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that if it was me, and I saw that in my mind's eye, like I saw it like as a dream, I wouldn't take it as a dream. I would take it was something real. Now that's going to lead us into our next story. This one was very weird. I'm going to tell you this. This is a weird story. This happened on South Padre Island. South Padre Island is way, way down at the bottom of Texas. It's one of the nicest beaches in Texas. It's very pretty. Anthony's ex-girlfriend saw a great white there one time. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, I was driving over that bridge one time when I was a kid from Port Isabel to South Padre. And, you know, they have, in that little bay right there, they have these white birds. I don't know what they are. They're the ones that dive bomb for fish.
The seagulls?
Is it a seagull or is it an egret? What is it called? There's a name. There's something.
I mean, I'm pretty sure seagulls will do that.
Yeah, but they're a type of whatever. Anyway, it's not important. We were going over the bridge, and I'm sitting there. I'm looking over in the water, and I see one of them land, and it's just kind of floating in the water. And then all of a sudden, it just goes ploop into the water. No bull crap. I'm not kidding. I must have been like 9 years old or so. I think it was 9. I believe I was 9 because I think I was only like in 5th grade or something like that. And it was gone. It didn't come back up. So something underneath that water grabbed that thing and just, you know, which I don't understand why you would just be floating around on the ocean like that if you're a bird. I mean, I would just be like tiger sharks, bull sharks, every type of, you know, whatever. And so that was weird. I was just sitting there. I told my sister, I was like, dude, that bird just disappeared. And she's over there like too cool for school, like whatever. She's like 14. She's just annoying to be around. She went into an annoying phase when I was born and never left. So that's pretty much it for her. She's one of the most annoying fake Christian people you'll ever meet in your entire life. If you're part of her church, she'll help with a coat for kids drive or something. She'll do something for you. But if you're not, she'll just go, oh, well, that sucks. I'm going to pray for you. Don't you go dying on me now. But if you did, I wouldn't care. God bless. She's that person. She walks by, you're on fire. Oh, would you like to talk about Jesus? No, me neither. She's walk off. Yeah, you know you are. You're fake. Yeah. It's the truth. It's just the truth. But, you know, she'll tell you all about how much God loves her, and she talks to God all the time. She's always talking to God. She calls God. She's all like, hey, God. Yeah, I'm still perfect. I guess you are too, huh? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just checking since we're both perfect. All right, bye. Oh, and by the way, my brother's evil. He sees through all my crap. Maybe you should get a hold of her, Ike. She might be willing to spill the beans on some juicy stuff about me that I don't give a crap about. I wish you all would just put your money together and hire a private investigator and find out every bad, juicy detail you can find out about me and throw it all out there. He's a racist. He's a Nazi. He's also a communist. I don't know how that works, but it does. And he voted for Hubert Humphrey, and he killed Jesus. He's a horrible, terrible person. And one time when he got really angry, he went to a place to buy a mattress, and he didn't buy it. You know what he did? He took that tag, and he tore it right off and just walked out.
And worst of all, he likes his steak well done.
He does a lot of horrible, bad things. He's bad, and he's wrong. He's badong. You don't want to deal with him. You just do not. He's like the Grinch that stole everyone's soul and sent it to hell. That's what he did. Folks, you should all leave my chat. Go away. Leave. Leave me. Do not be here. You're in danger. Your soul. You ever watch Eric Konevsky, the Russian gangster? I mean, he's our friend, but do you ever watch his channel?
Sometimes.
Acknowledge me as your Muscle Beach champion. Acknowledge me as your paranormal cryptid champion. I need to take my shirt off, smoke cigarettes while I'm doing the show. Just live free. Live free or die, right? It is what it is. I'm never going to BS you. I'm going to tell you exactly like it is. I'm going to tell you exactly what was told to me. And people are going to like it or they're not going to like it. You can put it up in your pipe and smoke it. I don't care. So I can tell you this. When you listen to this next story, okay? This person, okay, that gave me this story, she said, I'll say her name is Shauna. But Shauna gave me a story. She said, when I was young, I was in love. I had a boyfriend. We moved away from the valley where my dad got a better job, and we moved to Corpus Christi. And I would drive every other weekend, if not every weekend, all the way down to the valley to be with my boyfriend, Eric. And me and Eric would go to the beach. That was her favorite thing to do. Well, one time when she was 17 and Eric was 19, and he had just turned 19. She went to see him for his birthday. And she's like, we went to the beach. We went to the beach, and she's like, and it was beautiful, the stars, everything. We were just having a good time. We were in the back of his truck. He had this Toyota Tacoma, probably like Tony's. She's like, and we were there, and there were a few people around, but it wasn't a lot. You know, hey, there's a Shauna in the chat. I think she spells hers differently, but anyway, she's like, we're there, we're in the back of his truck, and we're just fall asleep. She says, I wake up and I'm underwater. She's like, it's nighttime. She's like, and there was something grabbing me. And she's like, and it was wrapped around me, and I could feel something pulling my foot. She's like, and we were in deep water. And then she's like, I get pulled down further and further and further. She's like, and I am so scared at this point. She's like, I can't breathe. And then she's like, something said into my mind. She's like, it told her to breathe. And she did. Once she breathed in the water, she realized that she could see. And then she realized, she's like, oh, this isn't real. This is a dream. I'm having a dream. She's like, and this being that was with her started to emanate a light from its chest. She realized that it was a bluish green being, and she said it was hideous. Like the face, it had this weird stuff sticking off the sides, like going on, like where people would have like a beard, you know, it had these weird looking fins going beside of its face. Uh-huh. And it had no nose, just a weird, like flat, and these weird big old lips. She said it was hideous. And these little squinty eyes, and it was like blinking the eyes real fast. And she's like, and it was talking to me. And she said, this creature told her, like, come be with me. And she was like thinking to herself, she's scared to say, no, thank you. And she was like, I just remember the smell of the water was so gross. Like, you know how when you go swimming in the ocean, you smell it, and it smells like fish and whatever. You know, it's just the ocean water. And she's like, I could taste the salt in my mouth. It was gross. It was disgusting. She's like, and I see this weird looking creature behind it, kind of like swimming around back and forth, like it was awaiting something with this being. And this was a dream, right? She's like, and then I closed my eyes and I told it no. And then she's like, I felt this thing grab me by my arms and start to pull me further out into the water. I wasn't going to let her go. And then she says, she's like, I just stopped and I focused and I said, God, in the name of Christ, let me wake up. Help me wake up. Wake me up. And she's like, just like clockwork, it did. She woke up. She was in the back of the truck, and she sat up, and she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, and then she realized, she's like, oh, it was just a dream. That's all it was. It was nothing but a dream. The weird thing about this story, it's not a really long story, but guess what happened? She was wet from head to toe. So I had to ask her, and I said, Shauna, I said, did you maybe go out into the water and not know, and that you maybe got in the water?
Sleepwalked or something?
Sleepwalk, yeah. She says, no. She's like, no. She's like, I promise you, I was not. It was like a dream, but it wasn't. So that's her story, because we were talking about dreams or whatever. And I'm going to round it out with another one. I got one from Indiana. Now, this one was given to me by a fellow podcaster, YouTuber, whatever, so he's probably going to put it on his show too. But they're like, I've heard this story before, and I liked it better when Josh Nonocchio told it, or Tony Merkel, or one of those other guys that's not you. I heard it was Supernatural's channel, or Darkness Prevails, or one of them other guys, and they're better than you, and you're just, I hate you. You just talk about things, and I don't like things. Right? Or you got the people up there from Oklahoma. I'm in a mood today, I can't help it. The funny thing, though, is like I said, if you go to Dogman UK, he talks a lot of crap about me, and it's funny. You know, he says it like, that fat tub Josh Turner, right? He's a bully, right? Bully is from, you know, right, Jabba the Hutt, right? Do I look like Jabba the Hutt here, dude? Okay? I can bench press a truck. Does Jabba the Hutt bench press a truck? No, he doesn't. Whatever, bro. So anyway, but if you could ignore his gobbledygook about me and go listen, it's funny anyway. I don't care. Let him lampoon me. But our friend Mikey from AI, he couldn't help himself. So he just had to attack the guy and troll him. And we asked the question, we were like, why? The guy was your ally. And Ike is that guy. You know the story, before I tell this one about the Indiana, you know what he is? You know how that frog, the scorpion says, give me a ride across the river.
Oh, yeah.
And the frog says, no, I'm not going to do that. You're going to sting me. And the scorpion said, come on. I promise you I'm not going to sting you. Why would I do that? That would kill me too. I'm not that kind of guy. Just come on. Let me just take a ride on your back. I promise you I'm not going to do it. I'm not that guy. He's like, I don't got all day over here. The frog's like, I don't know. You got that stinger and you do use it a lot. Yeah, but you know what? That's for the bad. You know what? I do that when I'm hungry. I'm not hungry. I'm going to go. I had a piece of pizza. I'm good. And I don't know why he's Italian. He just sounds like it. He's from the Northeast.
Well, it's because he's got the claws, which is the Italian. Hey,
Mangia.
mamma mia. You know,
he's over here like da-na-na-na-na-na. like the crabs on Mario Brothers. Look, so he says, look, I'm not going to sting you because I would drown too. Does that sound like something I'm going to do to you? And the frog's like, well, he does have a point. He would drown too. Surely he wouldn't do it. So guess what? He gives the little scorpion a ride on his back. They get halfway across, and the frog's thinking he's doing a good job. He's like, you know what? This is actually pretty cool, Louie. I'm glad you're... And he gets stung right in the back, and the scorpion's like, oops.
Hey, I'm stinging here.
I guess I'm stinging you over here.
I'm stinging here.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I'm just... You know what? I'm drowning now. You know what? This sucks. Yeah, I did what I did. I got no regrets. The frog's
do it again, whatever.
Frog's like, and he's like, why? And the scorpion's like, I couldn't help it. It's in my nature. I lied. I'm going to sting you. I did it. I stung you.
I don't get along with French animals.
You're a frog. I'm a scorpion. I sting. That's what I do. That's what happened to you, Dogman UK. You got stung. Because try as he might, Ike is an arachnid. Okay? And he's going to sting you over here because that's what he does. You're halfway across the pond. And you heard it from the fat tub Josh Turner, right? Among blondes and bulls, right? They defended Josh Turner, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And you got stung. Because that's what happens, right? That's what happens. So, that being said, the next story we're going to talk about. This one wasn't a really long story either, but it was weird. Okay, we were talking about flying humanoids. And I was watching a movie recently with my wife. It took me like 3 or 4 days to actually watch this movie because I have very little time. So this is my time to cut up and have fun, whatever. And it was that movie Black Adam. Now, they did the same thing. DC did the same thing that Marvel did to Venom. Black Adam becomes sort of a anti-hero, and he's Shazam's enemy.
Yeah.
And I think in the comic book, he actually fights Superman, and I think he beats him. And I think Shazam, whatever, I think he does too, because Superman is not impervious to magic. For whatever reason, that's why they say he can't beat, whatever, because Shazam and Black Adam are possessed of some sort of really powerful magic or whatever. And then, of course, Superman lost to Batman, who used the, what's it called? The Kryptonite, yeah. And he also lost to Doomsday. But barring those few defeats or whatever, I don't think he's ever lost to anybody, which was kind of boring, really, because he just beats the crap out of everybody. And you're like, well, what is this? He just, he just beats everybody up. So you have this character who is just superhuman, super powerful, whatever. And I was talking to Nellie, and I said, we have flying humanoid accounts. Now, this one comes out of southern Indiana, a very rural place. And when this person, when he was a child, him and his sister witnessed, now get this is really crazy. Guy's name is Perry. And Perry told me a very weird story. He says, when I was a kid, it was in the middle of winter. We had 2 horses and a donkey. And we went out to the Yeah, see? Shazam beats Superman and Black Adam does as well. That's right. I thought I was correct on that, but I wasn't 100%. We could ask Barton. Barton knows all about comic books. But he says, I go out there, and when we go to the barn, we hear something moving around up in the loft. Me and my sister, we look up. There's a man dressed in black. Well, he wasn't wearing a cape, but it was so weird. It was like he had a hood on and everything. Years later, his sister, when they started talking about it, and he goes, maybe my memory was wrong. He's like, but my sister was like, all of like 10, and he goes, I was like maybe 14 or 15. He's like, and she remembers it as being like a Grim Reaper type character, but they couldn't see the face. But this being, whatever it was asleep up in their loft. 3 days prior to that, yeah, Dick, you're right. Doomsday killed him. But enough about comic books. Look, 3 days prior to that, they saw a bluish light flying over their field. Their parents had like a cornfield. It wasn't theirs. It didn't belong to them. It was the neighbors, and their parents used to like work it for them, the neighbors. I don't know the whole story, but they said it was our neighbor's cornfield, but it was right up against our property. Let's put it that way. And I guess it was like a blue light that flew over, and then it just like looked like it landed, like almost like a meteorite, but with no fanfare. It just kind of, And the dad was in town buying feed, and it was nighttime, and it was dead of winter. And of course, it gets dark early, and it was only about 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
But there's nobody out there where they were at. And he said that their mother, she comes out and she's like, what was that? And they're like, we just saw this thing in the wind. They all went out, on the porch, and they saw this blue light fly several hundred yards into the like wood line, tree line. And so when the dad comes home, they told him, and he was just like, huh. Said that his younger brother, years ago when they were kids, had seen like a weird ball of light moving around in the woods. Don't know if it's connected. That one was green. But this was like a blue ball with like a tail on, like a comet.
Yeah.
So get this, 3 days later, they are in this barn, and there's this thing, I don't know what it is, all black, with this black overcoat that looked dirty, kind of gray from the dirt. He said it had to be dirty. It wasn't like, if you have something black, like, I don't know, like you have this wallet, it's black. This is actually crocodile. I know, folks, don't use crocodile skin or whatever. It was a gift, all right, from Africa. But it's black like that. But imagine like this is black, but it's like it's got gray from like being like ash or dirt or something on it. Yeah. Or like this shirt, it gets ash or dirt on it, right? But you could tell that it was supposed to be black. This guy just literally stands up in the loft. They don't see his face, and he just kind of floats slowly down to the ground. And they lost it. They freaked out, and they ran out of the barn. And then the guy walks and just opens the barn door like that, the two barn doors, and then gets up and floats across the top of the cornfield, slowly at first, and then takes off. And then he kind of like goes toward the gravel road and disappears. He's like, I went through the scenarios in my head for years, what this could be, what he could have been or what he was. And he told me, he says, dude, I honestly think that I witnessed some sort of immortal being or some sort of something. He goes, dude, I felt this energy from this thing. Like it wasn't going to hurt us unless it had to, but it meant business. And he said that the thought that he had, and it goes into a dream, was that it like was not supposed to be here, but it ended up here. And I'll tell you, he said he had a dream. He said that night I went to bed and I had a dream. And a lot of stuff happens in dreams, and you get a lot of information from dreams. Pay attention. And he said that when I went to sleep that night, he's like, I dreamed But this guy floated. It was a man, and he floated over to my window. He's like, my window opened like this, which it didn't. It opened up and down. But in the dream, it just opened like that. And this guy floated in, and he sat down like Indian style. And he's like, he put his hood back, and he was a striking individual. He said he had very, very, very pale skin with ice blue eyes. He's like, he had a very manicured beard, and he looked like some sort of like character you would see like in a movie or something. And he had pointy ears like an elf. And he said, he goes, I want you not to be afraid. He's like, I'm from another dimension, another plane of existence, and I was following something very dark that was coming. And it was my job. This is what this thing told him in a dream now, mind you. He says, and it was my job to get rid of it.
And it wouldn't really help me to not be afraid.
Yeah, well, this is what he said. He says, don't worry, I took care of it. And now I'm leaving. And he told him, he says, I'm going to leave this right here. And it was a crystal. And he said, it was a green, like a green little cylindrical crystal. And he said he laid it right there on his desk, on his computer desk, whatever. And he says, if you ever need anything, if you feel sick or weak or whatever, just grab a hold of that crystal and just hold it really tight. And envision a white light enveloping your body. And you'll be healed. And then he left. Well, the next day he wakes up and guess what? He looks at his computer desk. And what do you think happened?
Then that thing was there?
No, it wasn't. There was nothing there.
What?
He wakes up and he's like, oh, it was just a dream. I mean, you know, not trying to be funny, but he's like, nothing happened. He goes, I get up, I go to school, nothing. Nothing happens. He's like, about a week goes by. He goes, and my dad tells me, go clean out the barn, whatever. You know, it was spring. It was about to become spring. And he's cleaning out the barn, whatever. And he hits something like, well, with this, you know. And he's like, what is that? And he's got a shovel and he's, you know, horse poop. I used to shovel horse poop. I know what that's like. And he looks down and he picks it up with the shovel and kind of flips it. And he looks and he's like, there's this green crystal. And it's like real pointy and perfect. And then it's broken at the bottom.
That's a heck of a place to leave it for him.
Yeah. It just left there in the barn. And he's like, he bends down, he picks it up and he's like, what the heck is that? So he's like, years later, he had it for years. He said years later, he's like, my sister got really, really sick. He's like, and she was diagnosed with leukemia. And he's like, she got really ill. He's like, I was at her bedside and they said she's dying basically. And he's like, had totally forgotten about this crystal. He just left it in a drawer or whatever. And he thought about it. He's like, what about that crystal that supposedly the guy that, you know, and I kind of made a joke. I was just like, you mean like Black Adam? Because the guy was like, you know, it's wearing a hood and all that. Yeah. And the guy was like, no. He didn't really laugh or anything. So I was kind of like, okay. I was just trying to be cool, you know, whatever. And apparently he didn't really like the joke. I get it. You don't have a sense of humor, okay? You're stupid. I'm joking. You're not stupid. You're a nice guy, and I enjoy talking to you. But he says, dude, years later, he's like, I go back to my house. At this point, he's married. He's got a wife and his mother. I mean, his wife's about to be a mother, the expectant mother. He's like digging through. And she says, what are you looking for? He says, there's a green crystal. I have this green crystal I got when I was a kid, when I was like a teenager. And she's like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. She's like, yeah, I put it in my sewing desk. So he goes over there and he looks and he finds it. And he runs back to the hospital. At this point, she was very ill. Very, very ill. He puts it in her hand and he closes her hand and he starts to envision the white light. And for about 2 days, he sits with her and nothing changes. And he thought, it must have just been a dream. You know, it must have just been a dream. We did see the guy. He was real. We saw the comet, whatever. But this nothing has changed in her health, right? He's up there for a couple days. His wife is getting further along. She's like 8 months now. And he's like, I got to go back home. I got to be with my mother. And his mother had gone up there to kind of take shifts. You know, they were kind of sitting with her. Mm-hmm. She was passing away. She was about to do, she was literally like, they were getting ready to send her to hospice because her condition was getting worse. And so he's like, dude, I'm at home. And I get a call. And it's my great aunt. And he goes, and I knew what that call was. It was his sister. She passed away. And so she called. And she's like, your sister's, this is it. She's going to pass any minute. If you can get up here. And so, very weird, sad story. He's heading up to the hospital. On the way there, he gets a call, and they tell her she didn't make it. And he's like, that had to have been a dream. It was just weird, you know. And the mother said, you know, she had something in her hand, and she uttered some words before she passed away, and it was to give this to you. So the mom thought that it was something that she had. He had never told anybody about this thing. So she gives it to him. Now get this. Another dream. He goes to sleep. This is really weird. He goes to sleep, and in the dream, his sister comes to him. And she's kind of like glowing green, you know? And she's like, don't worry. She's like, I'm fine. I've passed over. Everything is good. She's like, but you're going to need that. He's like, but I wanted you to have it. I wanted you to live. And she's like, that wasn't my time. She's like, but very soon you're going to need it. You only got one shot with it. Keep it. And you're going to use it really soon. About 2 weeks later, his wife goes into labor premature. The baby comes out, but the baby's fine. It's a little underweight, whatever, but there's a lot of bleeding, and his wife is dying. Her blood pressure spikes. She's almost dead at this point, and she's going into cardiac arrest. He starts to cry, he freaks out, and he's holding that in his hand, and he lays it on her chest, not even trying to. Mm-hmm. He was going to put it in her hand, but she couldn't hold his hand. And it was basically him to say goodbye, whatever. That's all he could do. Put it on her chest, and guess what? She takes a big gasp of air and then sits upright. For a split second, he's like, her eyes were green, not glowing like, you know, like some sort of nuclear whatever reactor, but he's like, just quickly, they turned emerald green for a second and they were gone. And then I looked down and this crystal had turned black. And he's like, and it was warm to my hand. And I took it and just instinctively, I just threw it like off of me. He's like, I remember what my sister had told me in that dream, which he goes, I still think it was a dream at that point. And then I realized, no, it wasn't a dream. He goes, I believe my sister came back to tell me that she had rejected the help from this object because he was going to need it for his wife. So she made a sacrifice. The way he told it to me was she could have kept that. So the question is, there's a lot of questions here, right? First question I had was like, this is why he says he thought this guy was some sort of immoral or something like that. I said, did you get any sort of weird, nasty, mean, evil feeling from it? He goes, no. I didn't get a weird feeling from it. The being when he was in the barn. I didn't get a weird feeling from it when he was sitting, Indian style on the right side of my bed. He goes, now, the only question I had was, why was it not right there on the desk? He had an answer for that too, which I thought was really weird. I thought it was really odd. And this is what he said. He said that house that they lived in, he believed, had something wrong with it. Haunted, yes, but in the way, not like you would think. He said that there was this imp-like creature that was in that house and that it would take objects. And the reason he called it that is because he said that listening to my show, he remembers hearing that there was this thing that looked like an imp that would jump in and out of the mirror. And I said, yeah. Several people have been on my show. We've talked about it. And he says, we had something similar to that, but not jumping out of the mirror, but just you'd see it move and run around. I'm going to tell you a story eventually that happened to Nellie in the parking garage. Similar. This thing ran around, and he said, I think that little bastard, this was his words, took that and scuttled it away out into the barn. He goes, because the day he found that, he found 3 or 4 other objects. And he goes, yeah, missing necklace that my sister had lost years before. He's like, I think this thing tried to hide it from me.
Maybe that's why I can't stand the little creatures, because they're always thieves. I can't stand thieves. Always messing with stuff.
So that's a story he told me. He swears up and down that it's the absolute truth. He's like, I was there when my sister passed away. He's like, and my wife was dying after childbirth. She lived. Now, there's a little more to it. When his wife came home, they didn't discuss it or talk about it. She said that she saw a glimpse of the other side. And when she was on the other side, and I'm not saying this is absolute proof that whatever that guy was, but she said when he touched her chest, she saw this guy, this being, kind of come out of this white light. And she described him more as like a light brown skinned person with pointy ears. But he didn't have blue eyes. He had like dark eyes, and he had long hair. And he just came and he touched her chest, like boom, like right that on the up, right below her neck. And then he just was gone. And then she was back to reality. She said she felt a calm, a peace. And now his daughter is 8, or is going on 9. And I thought it was interesting to tell that story today because her daughter has the same birthday as you, which was the same birthday as my grandmother. Or was it what? Not my grandmother's birthday. My grandmother died on the same day as your birthday. But anyways, I don't know what you make of that, folks. You can make whatever you want of that. But, if that story is to be believed and what he tells me is true, what was that? Was this guy an immortal? Was he a saint? Was he a spirit? And what was he doing? Why did he fly out from the middle of nowhere into the woods? And then why was he in the barn? Did he achieve his goal? And what was the piece of crystal that he gave this guy? Interesting, too, he said that one day when his daughter was like one or 2 years old, she was asleep, and he went to go check on her, and he saw what he thinks was like this being made of pure light that was like standing over her, and it turned and it looked like a female, and she just turned and kind of went right through the wall and was gone. He said, and other than that, he's never had, in the house you're living in now, he's had nothing, no paranormal, no ghosts, nothing at all. Elastic Machine says ascended master. Yeah, I don't know. I do think it's interesting, though, that the being that he saw this thing to be was markedly different from what his wife saw when she came back to reality, our reality. Miguel says, I've heard accounts from friends who took ayahuasca describe seeing beings like what's in this story here. Yeah? Yep. Glades creature, yeah, me too. I feel the same way. You just, I don't know, man. I don't, I'm here as the messenger. I'm telling you. I don't, what happened to the crystal? Did he say he kept it? No, he didn't. He actually just tossed it because he felt like it was the energy and it was gone. There was nothing to it. So, I don't know.
What did this first guy look like again? I'm not the guy, but the being.
The being, from what in his dream, you mean?
Yeah.
Because they didn't see a face when they physically saw him like leave, like float up and take off. They didn't see it. And the thing is, there's a lot of accounts of flying humanoids.
Yeah.
People see it like all the time. I'm like not joking. I mean, it's like dinosaurs. People see dinosaurs with just a lot, man. And you would think that we're still living in the Cretaceous or whatever, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. But the guy, he had dark hair, and he had blue eyes, he had pointy ears, and he had pale skin, and a beard. The guy that was seen by his wife had a beard, but he had darker skin, like dusky-hued skin, I think she said. And then it was, dark hair, and then he had dark eyes and pointy ears. So it was a little different. The same sort of guy, but just
were they like really tall or what?
Tall and muscular, from what I was told. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I remember that when I was reading Tales from the Time Loop by David Icke, that he talked about these African legends of what they called the Muzungu, which is a Swahili word for, like, if you look it up on Google, it just says it's a Swahili word for white people, and it is, but it also refers to this like ancient legend they have of like these beings that they're like very humanoid looking, but they're like these Nordic, like really tall, muscular, like humanoid beings, and they're always like usually benevolent, but they usually have like blue eyes and like blonde hair, and they're like, I don't know, like it's like they're like an advanced humanoid race, like from like an extraterrestrial being. I don't know, but it just, that's why I asked what they look like, because it kind of sounds like something along those lines.
Well, we know, and we had this talk with Jody Cook, I guess, when he was on Friday. We talked a little bit about that. We kind of touched on that. And there are legends of these, and then we talked about it with Chris James 2 weeks before. And you get these legends and stories of this, Nordics who basically they fight, and they fight against the reptilians that wage war on everybody. And the reptilians are not necessarily just one race of beings and all have the same agenda. There's a sect and a subsect of that sect that are actually very, really bad, warlike. Just like there's these insect type beings, and some of them are very just there, and then some of them are very, very violent and evil. I don't know. Whatever lens you want to look at that. Any questions before we bounce? Wolf, do you think there are human looking like us? Yeah, of course there are. Hey, Mickey. How you doing, Mickey G? Let me get these. I can't use these as stupid bifocals. There you go, Ben Franklin.
Greasy Fry Bread has a pretty cool question. She said, "Why are these blonde-haired, blue-eyed race of humans living underground like Shangri-La?"
Why?
Yeah,
I can answer that. Because why would you live up on the surface where the sun can give you cancer and where you're subject to all the different changings of the seasons? Why would you do that? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Are you stupid, Fry Bread? Huh? Are you? Why would you do that? What would you do? Look at that. I could roll around the floor like a dog if I wanted to, because this is my show. You see what I'm saying? They're like, he's crazy. He says and does all kinds of crazy, stupid things. I just did a crazy, stupid thing. I just threw that because I don't care. I'm out of control. Altoid box. Make noise. Slam this on the table. And y'all are crazy and you watch me. Thank you for everybody that donated. We appreciate it, especially Rita Burnett. That was unbelievable. That was the biggest donation we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
You're mean. He's joking, Freibrand. Freibrand, I'm joking with you, man. I am seriously kidding. I don't think you've ever been in my chat before.
I'm going to cut that out of context and be like, I just asked Josh Turner a simple question. This is how he acts. He's crazy.
He's insane.
He's lost his mind.
Did I ever have it, according to them? I've always been crazy.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm out of control, man. I don't know what to tell you. Slim Jimmy, any pale encounters in East Texas? Do we have any? I don't know if we have any off the top of my head. Pale and humanoid encounters?
I don't think so. I mean, not that I know of.
I don't know. Anyways, folks, as our show winds down and comes to an end, if you're looking for more entertainment, I think Jason Bland is on right now. I'm going to tell you that every Sunday night. By the time we end, he's getting started. So go check him out. He's on multiple different whatever, and it's on Paranormal Soup. It's called Paranormal Soup. So anyway, I told you guys I was going to bring some A game today, and I hope I did. I don't know. I was holding some of those back, but one of them in particular, that story, I told you that one before, with the little girl where they were playing with the Barbies.
Yeah.
Anthony already knew that story because that day I told Anthony, I was like, dude, you got to check this story out. Read this. And then I was like, look, let me tell you the way she told me, because it's like reading it, and that's the part that I read.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I got to talk to this person.
I think the worst part for me was when she was in the kitchen, and she turned around and saw that ghost go through the island.
Oh yeah.
And she dropped her food.
Drop the food.
That's the worst part.
Yeah.
That's enough to make a grown man cry right there. I think I would break down in tears if I had some delicious food and I just dropped it.
Food is your world.
For a ghost of all things.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you know what? I'm glad you're dead.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that.
Waste food.
I don't know how that person lived their life. I'm a good person. I don't think like that.
Well, obviously they're wasting food, so they're not very nice.
My enemies say that I get on here and I act crazy. And they're like, what's wrong with this man? There you go, folks. Acting. You're just acting crazy. You're not crazy. You're just acting crazy. Give them something to talk about, right? I got to do these theatrics because I don't want the therapist to have a better live chat than me. You know? I mean, he'd be like, wow, oh, I can't believe that happened. Ah, ooh, ah. Can't have that. Can't do better than me, right? Or the man from the swamp, the greatest storyteller that ever lived.
Storytelling perfected.
Yeah. But like a cognac, find something, another, blah, blah. Something dark side. Who cares? I know that he was on the boringest guy on the internet show.
The CEO of a YouTube channel.
And then you have Mike, the CEO. Yeah, you're the CEO. I'm going to give a message to Kaylee. You know what, kid? You can do better. Leave the nest. Get away from these people, okay? You know, I know you made a bunch of jokes and made fun of me and said a bunch of ridiculous things, okay? I forgive you. But you don't have to sit there and be a part of The Hills Have Eyes. You can do something with yourself.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Hey, no one ever got rich living in the water. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And Choki Finoki, shut your pie hole, dude, okay? You don't want none of this. You don't want this smoke. Quit talking like you're going to do something. Just keep preaching from your fake Bigfoot pulpit where you have 10 to 12 viperous snakes that look at you. Nobody cares, okay? Vulture, I guess he's gone underground. And then you the fiction writer. I don't know. Keep pumping out that fake stuff, because I think once you have gone down that hole, who is going to take you seriously as a researcher? Who takes a fiction writer seriously? Funny that he disavows the woo, but yet he puts Fatty McBoombalatti on there and has him ramble on about the woo for 2 hours or whatever. What a bunch of hypocrites. Keep talking about me, I'm going to talk about you. And nobody's going to go and, I'm not giving you publicity. Nobody's going to watch you and take you seriously. They're going to laugh at you. That's what everybody's doing. The whole community's looking at you. A bunch of wankers, as they say in Britain. Go check out the UK Dogman, right? Josh Turner, right? That Josh Turner. And he got stung by the old arachnid there. Can't help it. He bit you because he's a spider. He can't help it. That's what he does. Peterson Damon, right? Anyways, folks, Tuesday we're gonna record. We got to get going. We got to record. We got to get ready for Tuesday. Dogman, aliens. Is there a connection? What's the connection? We're gonna talk about it. It's gonna happen. And then Thursday, what do we have Thursday? We have a crazy, really, really intense Bigfoot encounter from somebody. Be there. Next Friday we do it again. Sunday we do it again. And then we're going to have, on the following Friday, we're going to have an in-studio guest. Let's check the calendar. So next week is going to be, let's see, next week is Friday the 22nd. So we're going to be on 2 nights in a row. We're going to be on the 22nd and the 23rd. Friday and Saturday. Don't forget next week. We're not going to do a Sunday because that's Christmas Eve and nobody wants to sit there and listen to me talk on Christmas Eve, right? But 22nd, 23rd, we're up for it. We'll do it. We're going to bring you the guest on the 22nd, and the guest, I'm not going to tell you who it is. Keep it a secret. And then on the 23rd, we'll be retelling stories of what we do. Hope to see you there. I got to get recording, folks. We'll have something to give you on Super Tuesday. Okay? Thank you for listening. And if you still want to hear somebody talk, go check out Jason Bland on Talk Soup, or on Paranormal Soup. Good guy. Thank you so much. I'll see you. Thank you to everybody that donated. I understand donations are a little bit short right now because of Christmas, and I accept that. But Rita Burnett really saved the day, and thank you for that. I appreciate that. And good night. Somebody says, no more Krampus. Dang it. No, I have one. I do. Can't tell it tonight, though. Remind me, guys. Let's plan for on the 23rd. I will tell you that story. Now, there's 2 of them. One of them, I'm 100% sure that it's Krampus. I can say a Krampus-like being. The other one, I'm not real sure. But it could be. It could be. And it's taken me this long to get anything Krampus because I talked about it a couple years ago, and I haven't got really a whole lot since. But, I got 2, I think, that could fit that category, especially one in particular. So remember, on the 23rd, we will talk about Krampus, and I'll tell you Nellie's ghost story from the parking garage and some other stuff. Thank you, folks, and good night. Shade Viking says, hold me to it. Hold me to it. Remind me, though, because I get sidetracked, because my brain don't work right. And I took a blow to the head last night at the gym, so it just may make me more nuts, okay?